one.
Let's do this.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. You could be anywhere because this is kind of a big event that we're about to become a part of, and that is announcing the picks for the Frankfurt Dota Major. My name is Toffees, and just like last time, just like TI, I decided that, I had too much fun doing this last time. We're going to do it again. I sent out some POs once I heard that this was going on and asked any of the studios that are sort of more established, obviously, than little old me by myself if they were doing shows. They said that they weren't, so I said let's get this thing underway. So no special overlays. It's sort of like last time where I didn't have a lot of head notice. I knew there was something maybe going on today, but wanted to make sure that we gave it the coverage it deserved. So bear with us, I think, in this show, because what we're going to have is guests coming and going. We're going to talk about teams, keep up with what's going on in the draft, and I'm excited to announce that we're also simulcasting live to Dota FM. So if you are driving or need to be somewhere where you can't watch Twitch or the app isn't working for you, you can get mixler.com/Dota FM. And it's really easy. It's low impact, about as much as Pandora, and it is a free app that you can use to listen to the show as it goes on throughout the day. It's an open process. Basically, anybody, I've sent out tons and tons of messages to personalities in the scene, analysts, players, and said if you're a player, if you're an analyst, if you've got good opinions and a strong background in esports, especially in Dota 2, feel free to stop by the show. Send me a Skype message. I got my Skype pulled up right in front of me on the screen. And I'd love to have folks coming and going, just kind of talk about what to expect out of the next couple of hours. And it probably will be a couple of hours. Last time we did this show, it ran about 3 to 4 hours in its entirety when we get through all of the regional qualifications and all that other stuff. I'm going to try to keep it consistent just like we did last time, bringing folks in and out and putting a good show together for you. I've also got chat pulled up here on the screen. So if you do want to have some banter, if you want to go back and forth, if you've got questions or concerns, feel free to throw them out there. I'll do my best to keep up with the chat, but again, there's a lot to do, and it was all sort of, again, I don't want to say not a lot of head notice. They did put it in the blog, as I found out last night and around the pit, but definitely was not prepared to be the staple for this bad boy, but I'm excited to be doing it. Now, I know that Nahaz is hanging out in chat. Very excited to have him here. He said he's going to join us for the first hour or so. And I also got a message from Greg, What Is Hip? You probably know him as well from a couple of different things. Both are guests on Around the Pit fairly regularly that said that they would love nothing more than to help us kick the show off right. So gentlemen, and for anybody else, if you are a personality, if you're an analyst, if you're a pro player, if you're someone who has a strong opinion, message me on Skype. Let me know that you're interested in coming on. I'll be checking my Twitter notifications as well as everything else. And as soon as you call in, we'll just get you right on there. I'm going to throw them on the screen so that they can chat. I've done as much modification to production as I can to provide a value for this particular style of coverage show. But that's about all I can say, and I will repeat this throughout the episode because I'm sure people will be coming and going near constantly. That said, we are 24 minutes away from an announcement, and this is something that we saw start last TI, and it was the idea that instead of them just saying who's invited, we were going to get to start experiencing this sort of minute-by-minute rollout. I don't know what the sequential minute count is going to be, but what we do know is we're going to see 8 primary invites. These are invites that are going directly to teams, and it may be completely regardless of region. And these 8 teams are going to be invited to the Frankfurt Major worth $3 million. After that, we're going to have the invites to the American qualifier, the Southeast Asia qualifiers, so on and so forth. So actually, I think those are going to be people who come through the qualifiers. So we should get, I think, the qualifier announcements tonight. I don't know if that's going to happen for sure either. It's really kind of up in the air. So just bear with me, and we're going to keep rolling through it. And as we find out what the next thing on the docket is from Valve, I'm going to start immediately messaging my experts in those regions and getting them on as quickly as I can. So speaking of experts in regions, looks like Nahaz is ready. So I'm going to go ahead and give Nahaz a holler and see if we can't get him up on to this, give him up on this call. Send a video call out to Mr. Bester. All right, looks like we got some folks hanging out. We got I don't know if Grant's in here. If you're saying bring him on for the North American assessment, we had fun with him last time, so I'm never against it. Never against it. A lot of folks are saying that the invites have already been leaked. That may be true. I have not seen the list. Plus, let's be 100% honest, I would much prefer to do it this way. I want to be part of the fun. I don't want to be part of the, I don't know, leak. I want to sit here and I want to say, I got to see it happen. I got to watch it unfold. This is like draft day. I used to spend hours watching the NFL draft and seeing who my team was going to pick up. This is exciting to me. This is the kind of thing that we look forward to. This is what takes, in my opinion, esports and Dota 2 from being just your run-of-the-mill, let's go play a game, like it was when I was a young man, when we used to huck our computers to a college up the way to have LANs where we slept on the ground, to a legitimate esport where we get to sort of sit around and get excited about this sort of stuff, see guys in suits chatting. I don't know, I'm excited. This is the kind of thing that excites me. Now, I think I saw Nahaz there for a second. We've had a little bit of a drop on the call. I'm going to get him back, and then we will get him chatting too. You know, if you post the leak, it's fine. But you're gonna Nightbot may get involved. I don't know. Nightbot's pretty crazy. I can't control him anymore. He's gone Skynet on me. So I recommend you not post links just because Nightbot may take it out on you. But I have no control over that. Oh, here he is, Nahaz. How's it going, my friend?
It's going great, my man. How are you?
Oh, I can't complain. I'm excited, man. I live for this. I love these invites.
Yeah, this should be a lot of fun. I'm really curious to see. I think I have a fairly good handle on 7 of the 8 teams, and I have a pretty good guess for the last one.
Okay, so you think you got a good handle. First, before we get into your prediction, which I think I'm interested to hear, you just came from a pretty crazy weekend, right? I think you were at ESL doing the analyst panel and getting crazy. Did you literally? I heard that you did panel yesterday, flew back, gave a lecture this morning, and haven't really slept yet, and now you're staying up for the selection committee groupings, and then you got to hang out with your family later. When are you going to sleep?
That's the plan.
All right.
Sleep? What? I don't know what that is. So yeah, no, almost exactly 13 hours ago, I was staggering home from a bar in Times Square, and I did sleep for 2 hours, so I'm a wuss, but got up. Just got out of a lecture a little while ago, drove home, and here I am. This should be. I really am looking forward to this, and it was funny. I was sitting at the airport. I had a chance to grab another hour or so, but my brain was reliving the weekend and looking forward to MLG in 2 weeks, and I couldn't sleep anyway. So we're thinking about Dota anyway. So
are you going to MLG? Are you going to be at New Orleans for that as well?
Yes,
man,
I will be there.
Nahaz, going from a professor, savant, lover of stats to a man about town, a man about the country.
It's so much fun.
That's crazy.
These events are they're great. The people are great, and it's a lot of fun to be involved in the scene, as it's just on the verge of growing so explosively right now.
Now, Butlet in a chat says that you were dancing on the bar at the after party. True or false? No?
No, that would have been Frankfurt.
Ah, okay. Well, one ESL to another. All right.
No, I was relatively tame. Toby and I bowled for most of the after party, and our tour definitely was in rare form on the lanes.
Nice.
Although apparently not quite as good as Boba last year.
I heard it was pretty impressive. So that's it. That's fun to hear. It looks like Greg has actually logged on as well, so we're going to add him to the group call here real quick so that he can join us as we go into our assessments, or our preview, if you will, of who we think is going to get the invites. And I predict that we're probably going to fall into a very similar line in terms of some of our top teams. How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? What is hip? Greg Laird, whatever you want to call him. How you doing tonight, sir? Today?
I feel pretty underdressed, I'm not going to lie.
That is true. You walked into a room of good-looking, well-dressed men.
Everybody who is surprised, raise your hands.
All right, I woke up like 20 minutes ago, so for once, it's actually coffee with toffees. I got a little, got a little espresso.
Now, does the mug look that small because you're so big, or because it's a tiny mug?
Did you just do that?
It's espresso.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right, so let's talk about 18 minutes from now. They're going to start announcing who's invited. I want to get from you guys, who are your predictions for those 8 spots? Like that way, at the end of this, we can say you were right, you were wrong, you were pretty gosh darn close.
All right, so I think it's pretty darn easy to call 7 of these teams. They were of the top 6. At TI5, there were 5 of the 6 teams that had 1 roster change or less, the odd team out being eHome. And the 5 remaining were EG, CDC, Vici Gaming, LGD, and Virtus Pro. And I think those 5 teams are absolute locks. So I think you start with that. There are a lot of people that are looking at Vici Gaming and saying they haven't had the best record, including, I think it was Gorgon that said, they have a bit of a weak fall record. But we're talking, they played 7 games, all of them online. They got 2-0'd by LGD and CDC, who I both have in the field. In no way do I think that is enough to disqualify a team who finished 4th at TI5. I think they're absolutely in. I think Vega Squadron is in after what they have showed this weekend. Remember, they are one of only 4 teams that beat CDC in Seattle. They took them to the very brink in that first series of the playing game. I think they deserve a spot in the field for sure. And I think the debate, the uncertainty, I think Secret did enough at this last weekend to show that they belong in the field, reaching the finals, fairly convincing wins over Fnatic, and then CDEC, who admittedly looked a little bit rusty. And again, Valve does have a tendency to weight past player performance pretty heavily if we're looking at these TI invites. So I think Secret is going to get the invite. And the last team will be one of Fnatic or eHome. Of those two, I think eHome is the better squad. If you put them up against each other in a series, my rares are on eHome for sure. But I also have a very strong feeling that at least one SEA team will be direct invited. So I will go with Fnatic. I will not be surprised to see eHome.
So let me go over them again. You said possible Fnatic or eHome, EG, Vega, Secret, CDEC, LGD, and I'm missing 2.
So the top 5 from TI5 minus eHome. That's EG, CDEC, LGD, Vici Gaming, and Virtus Pro. Those are 5. Vega makes 6. Secret makes 7. And then the 8th is between Fnatic or eHome.
All right, so I've got your predictions locked in. Greg, what do you think?
I actually, believe it or not, agree with Nahaz, but I think it's going to be eHome like 100%. I think inviting Fnatic would actually probably be a mistake.
Now, what do you think that'll be a mistake? Is it just because a lot of folks... Okay, go ahead.
I mean, I just don't think they're very good, to be frank.
Okay.
I think that eHome is much better than them, at least from what we have seen between the 2 teams.
I think they're pretty good. I think they played Secret... They played Secret pretty well. I actually think if not for a few fairly obvious mistakes, they had a very, very good chance to win that series.
All right, so similar numbers. Now, here's my question for you guys. This is something to consider.
Wait, actually, sorry, hold on. I have a question for Nahaz.
Do it.
What do you think about C9 and like do they have any chance of getting invited?
Do they have a chance? Yes. I think that if it really depends on how heavily Valve weights region balance. I do think what we've seen, the NA scene has looked a lot stronger lately, notwithstanding EG's loss to Vega this past weekend. I really like what I've seen from C9. I think if you use what they call in college basketball the eye test, that C9 has looked like they're playing at a high enough level. At the end of the day, though, I think that gets you into this very tricky discussion when you start comparing C9 and, say, Kuro's team, 5 Youngs.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree with that.
They're both have shown just flashes of absolute brilliance. I really hope we get to see both Ritsu and Miracle play in this tournament. I hope we get to see Yawar play as well. Those 3 players, I think, you add in and I think those 4 are like my 4 freshmen right now. The 4 players that I think just have the opportunity to have a tremendous impact on the scene in the next 6 months. I do not think that you can justify directly inviting that team based on online performance alone.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was just curious what you thought. I mean, I think C9 is probably the strongest of the non-EG NA teams, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure you could possibly justify inviting them. They haven't even played a LAN.
I was having this exchange earlier. I think it's very, very similar argument applies to 5 Youngs.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Kuro's team, that I would love to see those 2 teams at this event. I think either of those teams get in, particularly 5 Youngs. I am very confident if they made it in that they would be a strong contender. C9, I'm fairly sure we'll get to see them at MLG. and we'll have a much better idea after we see a couple LAN series. But based on their resume on paper right now, I think it's a tough argument to make.
So let me ask you this, and some folks have brought this up. Particularly, I know you guys know Gorgon the Wonder Cow. He does a lot of behind-the-scenes analysis and writing. That Fnatic has a high potential of getting one of those invite spots. As you sort of brought up, they could kind of flex with that E-home, potentially 8th position. But we also know from the list, I'm going to pull that up so you guys can see it if you're not already looking at it, and that is the invite prep that they sent out sort of to let us know what was going on, that there was only going to be 8 teams directly invited as opposed to, I think it was 10 last time around, so a different model, and there's going to be 2 teams from each region, including Southeast Asia. If Fnatic gets the invite, a lot of folks are saying that's going to create kind of a vacuum because there's not a lot of teams in Southeast Asia that can sort of fill that 2-team slot and be competitive at the level the other teams at the major are going to be. Do you think that is a valid concern, or do you think it shouldn't matter that the top 8 teams should get invited, and if your region isn't as strong when they get there, it doesn't really matter?
I hope they don't weight the invites based on how good the open qualifier teams are, but I definitely do agree with Gorgon that I think that at least from what I've seen and what Gods has said, and I don't trust Gods about much, but about Sea Dota, I pretty much, I believe in his knowledge, and he says that the rest of them are pretty shit, so I would definitely agree they're probably pretty bad. But I don't know. I think there's also everyone's been saying NA is really, really good right now, but I think there's a chance that all of these, like all 5 of the tier 1.5 teams are all equally not quite as good as a team like 5 Jungles. But I mean, we won't really get to see that until, like the major, I guess. But
right now, and there is an argument that
or MLG
that right now North America and the Europe's regions are similar in the sense of there's a lot of fighting for those top positions, right? Maybe not the number 1 position. EG, I think we can all agree, is far and away better than a lot of the other teams in North America, but everyone's fighting for that second spot, and it can be pretty close. Europe also seems like they're fighting for that spot. If you did a direct comparison of, say, the next 5 teams in North America after EG and the next 5 teams in Europe, which region do you think is stronger?
Sorry, can you say that again? Because I just realized my camera was off, and I have no idea why.
That's fine. Now. So if you were to compare, let's take the top team in Europe and the top team in NA out of the equation and say, let's compare the next 5 teams in each region. Which region do you think is actually stronger in a head-to-head face-off?
I
don't know. That's a hard question.
The problem with that question is that I think the answer would change as you go 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah,
depending on how many teams.
I think
the power curve is very different.
I think probably the second and third team and
I think what happens is that if you go the second place teams, I think 5 Youngs is probably a little bit ahead of where C9 is in their development, but that's very close. I think though that once you go beyond that, I like DC quite a bit as a team. I think we've seen I actually think that what that team has shown so far is close to the bottom of their potential curve.
Really bad.
Yeah, they just have not played.
Yeah, they have not strung together, and they're in the same boat as the team that I'm managing right now, where they haven't qualified for anything. Life has been hard for HTWP and DC.
but I at the same time, I think if you put, I really do, and I like all these players, and so I don't want to be cast as flaming anybody, but
come on, you've changed.
But if you put DC up against, say, Monkey Business, I'd actually really like DC's chances. But again, it could go either way. And look, this is the thing. I was very skeptical of these types of arguments before I started working LAN events. But guys, it really is true that LAN results are just so much more indicative than online results, which is why I find a lot of the Twitter banner about how eHome ought to be taken ahead of LGD or Vici Gaming, I just find ridiculous. You don't exclude a team that finished top 4 at TI based on 7 online games. It's just sample sizes matter, and I'm not saying that online play is irrelevant, but LAN play is just so much more informative.
Okay, and
I wonder. Okay, so I have another question. So in Counter-Strike, so the major system has already been around for a while for Counter-Strike, right? I mean, that's, it's a thing. Clearly, the Dota major system is built after the Counter-Strike one, and there seems to be a ton more, like a ton more weight put on LAN. Basically, online literally does not matter in Counter-Strike, but part of that is because of like the ping differences. In Dota, like having 70 ping is like pretty much fine, right? It's like it's not perfect, but it's totally playable. It's not really a big issue. Players don't really complain about 70 ping, but 70 ping Counter-Strike is like
it's not just ping.
So this was leading towards where I was gonna go is that major results in Counter-Strike are like far and away, well, not the only thing anyone cares about now that there's a lot more LANs, but for a while it was basically like, well, in Katowice last year we did pretty well, so so the next major we're gonna do pretty well again. They basically don't even count like that block in between. The only thing that matters is like the regional LAN qualifiers for the majors and the majors. Do you think that this sort of like mentality is going to shift over to Dota, or do we have too much stuff for that ever to really like happen?
I think that no. So the question as you phrased it, my answer is going to be definitely not. Okay, Dota, there's just a lot more going on.
There's just a lot more games,
and when it's not just a lot more games. It's just the fact that the Dota 2 meta is just infinitely more complex than Counter-Strike. The changes that we're routinely going to see to the game after these kinds of events, we're seeing teams adapt to these new patches. It's very, very different. Okay. Recent results do matter. This is part of why I hope the next LAN or the next major invite show that we do together, I hope that we're having a different conversation, because part of the problem is because of the way that TI has been in the past, there's always been kind of this dead period before and after TI.
Right.
And there was again this year. And this is why we're in this kind of discussion where we're talking about major invites where we've only seen one LAN in between we've only seen one major LAN in between TI and invites going out, and it was on a brand new patch and just ended less than 24 hours ago. So it ideally we would have seen several LAN events between TI and now. Ideally we would have several LAN events between majors, and I think you're going to see that smoothing out of the schedule as organizations get more used to the major format.
Yeah, I agree with you again. I don't like how much I'm agreeing with you today. I should go back to sleep, wake up with a new attitude.
So to return to the discussion about
sleep
LANs,
sounds good.
Greg brought this up, the idea that maybe CSGO cares more about majors because of things like ping issues. Nahaz, you said that LANs should be considered are a much bigger indicator of performance. Why is that?
So let me go into that a little bit deeper, because in Dota it's not just ping. Like the big thing that I've seen and really grown to appreciate is, each LAN event in Dota evolves its own micro meta. I mean, could any of us have predicted before TI5 like that Darkseer was all of a sudden Darkseer has been picked or banned in all but like 3 of the, I think it's like 104 games now that we've seen in 6.85. Could anybody have predicted that was going to happen before TI5? If you'd have told me before TI5 that right now I would be thinking that TA is the most overpowered hero in the game, especially against certain lineups, like there was no indication of that. And so the all that matters is what you did at the last major mentality. I don't think that's ever going to fly in Dota, and that's part of why, like, when I'm talking to some of these organizations, when I'm talking to fans about, are we still going to have ESL New York? Are we still going to have ESL? We still going to have MLG events in between these majors? Absolutely. Because I think you learn so much about these teams. You see so much important happening with these teams at these majors. I mean, the majors actually give these events an importance that's beyond the prize pool. Like when I was on the panel, obviously they show the prize pool and they want to talk about that because, people can still buy the items in the game and increase it, whatever. But I mean, I think the major implications are as or more important than the prize pool. to these teams. So I actually think the majors can boost that up.
You just used a word, I think you called it the micro meta. What?
Yeah.
Well, so I don't know that I've used that before. Is that basically like individual lands, meta events, or what's a micro meta?
Yeah, I think what happens is that you see each individual tournament has its own meta. And what happens is that teams go after the event and they look at the replays and they try some of the strats and scrims. And some of the strats they look at and they say, okay, well, there was a way to counter that, but the teams at the land just didn't the teams that were alive at the land didn't necessarily see it. Okay? And some of the strats they look at and they say, holy shit, that really is OP, and that becomes a staple of the meta. But you get to see that happening in real time. Like, I was drooling on myself at TI5. Like, the way that CDEC, like, rewrote the meta as the tournament went on, and every single freaking team was trying to borrow elements and figure out what CDEC was doing. And it was amazing to see. Like, you could see from the draft openings, like, the fundamental concepts that underlie how we value heroes changed on a daily basis at TI. And I was just sitting there. I don't know. I mean, there wasn't enough space on my laptop for all the crap that I was trying to do.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely, just to add on, you're absolutely right. Like, each LAN event definitely gets their own, set of popular bands, set of popular first picks. It's definitely a thing. Like, it happens every single LAN, especially at TI. And I think, I don't know, I kind of like it. It kind of gives each tournament a little bit of extra flavor when I think back and remember it. So.
All right, we are officially 52 seconds away from the first announcement, so I'm going to open that up so everybody can watch it at the same time.
5 seconds.
What?
I have 33.
Oh, never mind. It's back to 51.
Yeah, there you go.
Volvo.
All right, so let me ask you guys while we wait for it to pop up, who do you think is going to get the first invite? Last time they did it by sort of performance, they did it in TI that way. One of the top teams got picked first. Who do you think it's going to be?
EG.
I mean, this gives a perspective.
Is that even a question?
Fair.
I mean, if they don't invite EG, then...
Well, we know they're going to get invited, but maybe they send a message.
Yeah, it is.
I don't see how EG wouldn't be number one.
Ooh, what a surprise. EG's got invited. Woo!
All right, so there it is. It's up. Officially up. 9 minutes till the next one. EG gets the first invite. The fans go wild. All of us say, oh, we were shocked by that. What do you guys think? Obviously, I mean, I should say, is there any surprise there in the sake of, covering this correctly?
Oh, of course
not.
No, I mean, I think obviously there are some questions about their new roster. I think the questions over Fear's transition to support are silly. I think Fear is going to kick ass, as he always has, wherever he's been in Dota. I think the questions about how Artur and Sumail are going to coexist are perfectly valid. Sumail, as his play style has evolved, has become he kind of always was, but it's become much more pronounced. He's become a very static farmer for the first 15 minutes of the game, and then he completely changes gears and goes ham minutes 15 to 30. Artur is used to being fairly protected in that same first 15-minute period. There are some questions with their roster. What we saw in the first game against Vega over the weekend was clearly rust. I think you could see another 50 EG games like that, and you're not going to see them get caught without multiple buybacks like that again. What we saw in game 2 was just absolutely silly. And I think Peter, if you got a few beers in him and asked him, would probably admit that.
So what do we chalk up that performance? And we talked a little bit about Around the Pit with some other analysts last night, but neither of you guys were there. Greg, I think, had to go to a party or something, and obviously Nahaz was on an airplane. It was
my roommate's birthday. We went to the casino. I'm not going to lie.
That's fair, and I heard gambling went well for you. Gambling did not go well for EG. And let's talk about, what do you think was the issue that caused them to, get knocked out in the first round? Now, don't get me wrong. We're used to seeing them come back from the loser's bracket anyway.
I don't think you're going to see the 4 offlaner strat again anytime soon.
I know that they have not been practicing as much as they were before TI. They won $1 million. I know that they took a little break. A bunch of them went on vacation. Peter moved, didn't have internet for a while. I mean, I don't really put a lot of stock in ESL, honestly, from EG. I know that they haven't been practicing as much as they normally do. So,
yeah, I mean, I think that I don't know. I think that gives you basically no information about the team.
Yeah. I like, honestly, in my performance, I'm expecting out of the major. I don't even count ESL. Like, it's pretty irrelevant, I think, for at least for EG. For the other teams, it's probably fairly indicative. But you know, EG and CDEC, they both just want a shitload of money. I'm sure that they took a little vacation.
CDEC, I think that there are. I think you can make a case that there are some concerns for CDEC.
Well, I think CDEC, I think you could just say that, you know, it's possible that their play style isn't diverse enough to support.
Let's put it that way.
Success at two lands.
It's debatable. Okay. EG, I really, anybody that comes and tries to make a serious argument that we should be concerned about EG based on what we saw in the previous weekend, I think that's very, very difficult to do.
Okay, and I do want to point out while we have a second that we've got some folks, Knoxville, I think Sir Action Slacks, Malastrix from Join Dota, a couple of folks lurking in chat waiting that want to come in at some point, but have told me that there's nothing interesting to talk about yet because EG was an expected selection, so they're holding back until that stuff comes down the pipeline. When do you think, at what point in this list do things start to get interesting is the question. I think we all knew EG. I think we can all expect CDEC to get an invite and a couple of others. When does the conversation start to get really, what's what I'm looking for? Argumentative.
Well, it depends the order they release the
video. Early as third.
Okay,
because I think EG and CDEC are easy top two, first two invites. And the question is, once we start getting into third and fourth, if you stick to the sort of TI5 based script, you see LGD, you see Vici Gaming. I think it's possible, depending on how much weight you choose to give to recent performance, it's actually possible that you could slot eHome up there. But I still think it's going to be down into 5 and 6 before the discussion becomes really interesting.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. And I will say that I think we differ on the opinion that I think eHome will definitely get an invite based on the fact that they have just, I feel like they have been dominating the Eastern scene at the moment.
Look, I literally punched my wall when I heard that they had visa issues and we're not going to be in New York. I was really excited to see that team. But
just ace things.
So it sounds like I'm going to flip over real quick here because I have an interesting message from Sun Tzu, who says that he would like to argue why Vega should not get a nod in this invite list. I'm curious to hear what he has to say about that, so I'm going to add him to the group call real quick as we continue to sort of keep this thing rolling along. Now, you guys are both the opinion that Vega will and should get an invite to this tournament. Is that correct?
100%. Write it down.
They just won the tournament, like... I don't know. It's pretty hard to. I mean, I can imagine a world where they don't get invited, but then it's like, who do you invite? It's like, who do you invite instead?
I don't think there's a good argument for not inviting Vega. I really don't.
All right. Well, it sounds like maybe Sun has agreed with you and is backing out of his argument because he's not answering his call.
Bitch.
So,
oh man.
Maybe he'll come back. I don't know.
He's actually a really fun guy to argue with.
So. Oh, very much so.
Dangled.
Very passionate. So he can call in a little bit later if he gets a chance or if he decides. Oh, wait. Here we go. There he is. How's it going, Sun Tzu? We've got 3 minutes till the next pop.
Let's do it, baby. Vega, come on.
What do you got for me?
Okay. Let's just be realistic here. This is one stat point. This is literally one tournament where, yes, they performed really well. They played really, really well. But we've seen this team perform this same exact lineup. We've seen them play now for 5 months, something to that effect anyway. And to expect that after this is now their new level. This is where we now expect them to be constantly. That is suspect.
So your premise is that this was sort of a flash in the pan and that they're not an established enough performance history to validate an invite?
Well,
By the way,
it's gonna get real angry in a second. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm not gonna get angry. I'm not gonna get angry because I think this is a softball, baby. Like there's no need to get angry about
I
this.
think your opinion's so bad. I'm not even worried. That's what he just said to you.
TI, with every shuffle, we have first of all we have the established teams because they've gone through this grueling process of practicing for TI, attending TI. They take the time off. They're not as focused. And this first month of play after each TI, we always have these teams that rise up, that look great, and then it doesn't actually translate.
So what you're saying?
I think this is way more a indicator of that
But
than
that's an
of
argument.
them.
That's an argument about. That would be an argument about how well we think they're actually going to do in the major, in my opinion. Not about whether they.
I mean, that's what do you care about with the major? You care about getting the teams that are going to perform on the day. I don't care about.
I care about inviting the
getting
teams
team
that have earned
used to be good a month ago.
Just because
No.
Power Rangers can't
No.
seem to close out a TI doesn't mean that they don't get invited because of their performances.
I care about inviting the teams that have earned the right to be there. And Vega just went through EG, IG, and obviously it's a new roster, but that secret team looked pretty damn good.
Game on this patch, hadn't played a single game in the last.
So what? Who has?
Well,
There's
I mean,
no
A
official
lot
or-
of teams have. For
Before that
example,
event-
5 Jungs are undefeated on this
Before
patch.
that event, there was no team. Vega themselves, before that event, had played 28 games.
Yeah,
There are
Vegas
right now-
is one of the most
There are
prolific
right-
teams that have played after TI.
There
They
are
have
right
way
now,
more
I
games.
believe-
All right, guys. Next up, 20
That's
seconds,
the
real
Kobe
quick.
scoop.
You got to tell me who your next pick is.
C-Deck.
CDC.
See that? Yeah.
All right, so we're waiting for that. You may commence the arguments if you wish.
Can
but
I
it-
continue?
No. Let's do
here
the
it is. No,
reveal.
it is
I wanna see it.
CDEC officially. So CDEC or CDEC, as I've been corrected a couple of times already, takes the pass, goes on to the direct invite. Now CDEC, what are they getting their invite on the back of? Is it performance regionally? Is it their performance at TI? Is it the fact that they have just been a crowd favorite for since TI and kind of the dark horse team? Like, what gets them the second place call?
They got second place at TI and they didn't get dumpstered at ESL.
There you go. Okay.
Anyone disagree with me?
Yeah, I mean, even though like that.
Even if they
second
had gone
place at
dumpstered.
TI, that's I'm gonna put that one down as overperformance as well. But the thing is, they were consistently at the top of their own region before TI for about a month. So we have sort of this consistent performance. So there is a reason to expect that they're going to continue to be good enough to be at the major. So from that perspective, it's a completely legitimate. I don't think they're going to, by any means, remain the best team in China. I think that was an outlier.
Well, I
I
think,
think there are serious questions. Go ahead, Greg.
An interesting side note about CDEC, I was talking to a bunch of people who are like way more involved in the Chinese scene, like some Chinese translators, like before TI. And I was talking to them about Wildcard because obviously I was managing Archon, it's a Wildcard team. So I was, doing some intel gathering on CDEC, and all of the people who are like intimately involved in the Chinese team told me that CDEC scrimmed all the tier 1 teams and beat all the tier 1 teams in scrims, and they were like, oh, well, CDEC is gonna roll through the wild card and beat all these teams, no problem, like destroy the field. And I was like, you guys are absolutely insane. And they were totally right. And I was like, well,
Because CDC is
shit.
one of the,
I mean,
one of the
I
things
think you guys
actually-
counterplay. I think they're going to be good for a while. I don't think they're going to completely fall off the map. That's what I meant.
No,
That
I
was
mean,
a
they're not
huge-
going to completely fall off. I'd say they're probably a consistent, like, top 8-ish in the world. That's probably their level. Like, that's where
that seems a little low to me, considering they don't have to learn Lesh now. So, right? A little bit.
I mean, I think if you actually go back and look at how they played at TI, the reason they got top 2 at TI was the failure of the other teams at the tournament. They
that is such a
literally
cynical
you
thing to do.
just looked at their games. They had the same. You remember the complexity smoke gank? They had the same thing, except theirs was around 8 minutes in, I think.
There's way more than one element to that. So you are
No,
correct.
yeah, but like this is just an example of how formulaic their gameplay was. At about 8 minutes in, when they were playing Dire, they would smoke off. They take the path down to the bottom room, and then they'd move in up through the jungle and up to the camp next to the mid lane.
But I think it was
They do that every game.
Hey
Literally
Ben,
every
what's up, dude?
time.
All
I
right,
think
so
it was. Go ahead.
I'm gonna introduce Knoxville. This is the gentleman who is in charge of all the pop-ups at TI, a stat master himself, a lover of all that is Dota, and I believe someone who cares for nothing more in the world than to argue with Sun Tzu. So he is here, I think, expressly for that purpose to do some refute. So let's hear what you guys got. Keep in mind we have 6 minutes till the next team is announced, and I think we're getting to the point where we may get to talk a little bit about the teams that are coming in as not shoo-ins.
Yeah, I'm just here as a proxy for Scant, who can't be here.
Aw.
What the hell is wrong with your headphones?
Yeah, no.
They are broken, and Sennheiser have taken 3 weeks to get me a new pair.
It's because you live in South Africa. That's some
Okay.
long shipping,
We're working
dude.
on this. We're working
You
on
look
this.
like
You
one
don't
of
have
those
your bowling
dogs
gear.
with the flappy ears.
He does. Look at Snoopy looking man.
We're gonna. Don't worry. We're gonna turn him
This
into a
looks
Euro.
So fucking ridiculous. I can't even.
Shut up, Craig. I can't handle you.
All right, so what do you got for me, Knox?
No, I just came here to say Vega definitely deserve an invite. That's it.
So right now, the moral of the story is Johan is outnumbered 4-1,
Yeah.
and I think
I mean, I already had this argument on Twitter quite a bit, and like, it's not a completely unreasonable argument to say that Vega could deserve the invite, because there's so little actual evidence for any teams right now.
Yep.
And
that's fair.
but
That
the
I'll
problem is,
completely agree
the
with.
problem with that is that at the same time, how many of you would have said that Vega deserved the invite before ESL? And how
None of
many
us,
of you
probably.
will
Yeah, that's
keep
true.
saying that when they return to the same level that they had before ESL, after ESL?
But that's not
Interesting.
how this works.
But
I mean,
you
there's
said
No,
I-
no,
other
no,
lot
but
of-
you're saying
I
that
spent-
literally
I-
because we're doing these invites at this specific moment in time, they deserve the invite.
Yep.
But we aren't holding the tournament at this specific moment in time. So
And?
why does it matter
So we
when
play
we're
a
doing
guessing
the
game
invites?
about who's
We should
going to be good a
looking
month
at
from now.
when the tournament is going to be.
This is look. It is. I think a lot. I had the same argument for years in college basketball about conference tournaments, and everybody would try and get up there and say, "Well, this team wasn't really trying. Well, this team was just sandbagging for the NCAA. Blah 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 blah. Whatever. They fucking won. Okay, Vega. You can say whatever you want about EG. Looked obviously very rusty. IG was playing with a stand-in. Secret, obviously, as a first time playing at a LAN with that new roster, they had some issues in the final. Envy made some very obvious mistakes that I think I actually do think he'll clean up very quickly. You can say all of those things. The fact is, Vega went into a statistically very strong field, and they won the damn tournament. And that was the only major LAN we've seen.
Statistically stronger than it turned out to be.
So let me ask you guys this, and I want to veer off a little bit from Vega hate, Vega love. And do you think
ESL Vega would
Do
not
you
have won
think?
the tournament?
Do you think
Just
that
as
if
a-
that if
just as a
Gamers
example.
Paradise
I-
hadn't been
if-
such a clusterfuck,
That's a great
invites would be
guessing game.
different?
What? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Toughies. I did not hear your question.
I'm asking if Gamers Paradise had happened, if a different land maybe had been in its place, do you think this invite list would be different than it is going
It's
to be
quite
today?
possible, yes.
Probably, yeah.
It is quite
because
possible. Who was on the?
everything-
Remind me, who was on the list for Gamers Paradise?
I would
Well,
have to
Secret
Google.
notice. I think Secret is kind of
Secrets,
the big one,
Navi.
right?
Well, secrets
actually,
are
yeah.
relevant because I think they're going.
There weren't enough teams actually going to Gamers Paradise that would have.
That's the question.
really changed
What?
things.
That it was
The
also
big thing-
literally like 3 days or whatever after the roster lock. Like that was
The
kind
big
of
thing that
clusterfuck.
could have changed is if Monkey Business, if Five Youngs, if maybe even Alliance had been on the Gamers Paradise list and had done really well. The problem with the Euro scene right now is I think everybody. I actually believe that there's a huge amount of talent, but it's in a very large pool of teams and nobody exactly knows what the ordering is. I'm not 100 convinced that Five Youngs is better than Monkey Business. I'm pretty sure.
Monkey Business looked very close to Five Youngs,
right?
Before the patch hit.
But
but Five Youngs are doing a lot better with the patch. And
but again,
I talked to Fly after the patch hit, and let's say it's not exactly the kind of patch that they would have loved. So and you can see that in their play, like just how they built around the individual skill of Miracle and stuff like that.
But I can't emphasize enough though
it's not their patch right now.
how much it is possible for sure to look at these players and talk to the players and project the performance, but it really things happen at LANs that you don't expect based on online play.
Yeah,
and that's why I think Gamers Paradise could have changed a lot, but wishes were fishes, right?
Wishes.
Sometimes you got Lance in Slovenia with no computers, no organization, and they just don't happen. You know. It's just life. That's just life in Dota 2. Now we have a team cartel, so that's the good news. That'll fix all these problems, right?
Yeah, I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get into the cartel. Like we don't even know what's happening.
Man, I was trying so hard to incite a riot right there, and it didn't work.
No, it was because we went over it last night. You weren't here. You were gambling,
really
playing
busy,
blackjack, doing your
playing
thing.
blackjack.
Well, you know, life is tough.
Hey guys,
man.
it's 1 minute until LGD
All right.
gets announced.
Okay, so that's your pick. 48 seconds. What are you going with? It sounds like we've already got a vote for LGD. What are you rest of you guys thinking?
I'm thinking it's going to be a well, let's just assume it's going to be west east.
I don't care what you assume. Who are you picking?
Secret.
All right. What do you think, Greg?
LGD.
Gert's
Nahaz.
going with the money here.
Nahaz?
Going with me.
You know where I'm going, baby. I'm Statman Solidarity. I'm going LGD. Absolutely.
LGD. All right. So once again, it's 3 against Sun
You
Tzu.
know how dumb we got.
Actually,
Wait, what was this vote?
no,
Secret?
I'm swapping. VP.
Oh, you can't
VP,
swap. Okay, you can
VP,
swap to
because
VP.
VP,
What?
they're
I'll allow it.
They're the last one of the 3 teams that actually have most of the same roster that
Right.
were in the top.
I'll allow it.
That's actually a reasonable argument, although you still fucking lost.
All right, here it comes. Time. I'm refreshing the screen to make sure we get it. Oh, the waiting. It's too much to deal with. My refresh isn't working.
We need some music here,
Bad
guys.
gateway rip. Site
Yes,
broke.
I'll just look.
Is the site broken?
It's probably as the sync is happening on where.
Stop refreshing, guys. You've got the show. You don't have to refresh. It's too many
Okay.
refreshes.
Well, the site is now run by the Dota 2 game coordinator, so rip.
We got quality black screen going on right here. Well, it is page unresponsive, brutal. While we're unresponsive though, let me take a quick chance to say, guys, if you're getting on the road, I know we're hitting the end of the North American workday and some other regions as well. You can tune into mixler.com/DotaFM if you want to listen to the show.
LGD, get wrecked.
LGD gets it. My computer screen hasn't updated, but LGD is going to be the invite. So it sounds like, once again, Sun Tzu is defeated. Guys, what do you think about them getting it?
I'm
Triple
like 2
wrecked.
hours of sleep and playing around. Sorry.
Now, some in discussions we had last night, and I've had with other analysts, some people said LGD might not have even gotten an invite. Do you think that there's any credence to that, or do you think it was they were shoo-in from the get-go?
Say that again.
Who said
Some-
that? I want to talk to them.
Who said that?
Two
And why?
players and they haven't done anything. So, I mean,
Was that
it's not-
also something you said, Sun Tzu?
Well, no. His point is that they did change out some players, and that we haven't seen. I don't think we've seen them at a LAN live.
No, we haven't.
So they're a big
They've
organization.
played like 2 or 3
Oh,
series.
technically, I guess it is 2 players, but I kind of
So that was the argument.
Like they lost.
Oh, one of them's
They
BC.
lost the captain. That
It's
when people
No,
said
no,
like, when
yeah, that's
Newbie
the
lost
one.
Zhao 8, everyone was like, "Oh no, Newbie's a whole new team." But when LGD loses Zhao 8, it's
I think it's
Yeah, but
relevant.
remember that people,
I think it's
like
relevant
groups
who
of
they're
people can be
replacing
wrong.
with.
Like, remember that if there's
ROTK
a large group of
rather-
people,
yeah.
if there's a large-
ROTK is like, in terms of who LGD could have gone to replace Zhao 8, ROTK is the best they could have.
Ben, what were you saying?
I was just saying that like large groups of people can say different things and be right or wrong. Like just because lots of people said they're losing Zhao 8 means that they've lost. Now that doesn't mean that I said that and other people have said that. It's like
No. And honestly, I don't mind LGD getting a spot. For me, the whole like LGD IG eHome right now. It's very up in the air who should actually be there.
Remember also that he's a sub for the team, which also means he's part of their preparation, and that's like a very important thing. And also remember that one of the players that they're getting back is DDC, right? And DDC played with LGD for like forever, except for when he played for eHome. So
yeah, but you're the one who loves, just as I do, loves to bring up the stat that DDC is one of the lowest game impact players in the world.
He's one of the most passive players, yeah. So if a patch, patch doesn't have any room for that, then yeah.
You actually, Sun Tzu actually brought me around on that. I was skeptical of that criticism of him, but I went back and watched a lot of the replays, and he's not the player he once was.
Fair. Yeah. All right, so
it's just a different player.
We've got some more folks who want to come in. Sun Tzu, you got your Vega argument in. Is there anything else you want to say before we get our new guest in the door?
No, I'm pretty good. Like, I think in general, just there's going to be a lot of arguing about the merits of inviting people based on seeing so little from them so far, and I expect that at least some of the invites are going to be sort of like just big names and brands. So don't go too hard on Valve. This is not an easy choice to make.
Fair enough. All right, well, thanks for stopping by, and I think Vegas can get the invite, but if they don't, we'll all know it's because you're responsible for campaigning against them.
Yep.
Hey, Steve, we have a very important question here.
Yes, what's that?
A very important question from a member of Twitch chat saying, hey guys, do you consider C9 an American team or a European team? And he didn't say Kappa, so it definitely is a serious question.
Okay.
How could they possibly be a European team?
Well, how could they? Haven't they run in other groups before too?
Oh yeah, baby. It got real.
All right, so
are you actually?
Oh my God!
You know what?
We're in bed in Butler's house.
No, this is Sir Action Slacks. He is a staff at the what's it called? I think it's Moon Duck Studios or Hippogriff Studios or something like that.
You spelled Meme Duck wrong, dude.
Meme Duck Studios. He's the staff interviewer and host, or one of the hosts. How's it going, Sir Action Slacks? Do you actually watch Pro Dota? I guess not.
Oh wow!
So,
all right, he's gone. It's over. Well, I can tell
Welcome to the show.
I can tell you,
watch Pro Dota.
He at least watched like 1 or 2 games at my house like a couple days ago, so that counts for something, right?
No, I actually, in all seriousness, and I'll take this chance since he's not here to play himself down. I know Jake on a personal level, and I think that the guy is probably one of the hardest working people I know in esports in general, and it actually follows the scene incredibly intensely. He just had the misfortune, I think, to start, or the fortune to start his career making joke videos that sort of branded him as not serious.
He actually legitimately has so many good ideas.
I agree 100%. I think he's just had a good amount of flame in his life. That said, 3 minutes left. We're about 4 minutes. What are we looking at for the next invite? This is where it starts to get a little bit, maybe a little bit more shaky.
Vici.
Okay. So, do you think that there is any concern by Valve during this invite process to over-inviting certain regions representationally, or is this going to be Valve saying best 8 teams in the world, you get an invite?
We'll know this very quickly whether or not there's 4 Chinese teams or not. If there's 4 Chinese teams, they took the best 8 teams in the world. If there are less than 4 Chinese teams, then they threw a goodie bag towards SCA or NA.
I think that is a more complicated conversation than we need to have right now. I think the first 3 teams have been 1, 2, 3 from TI5, and the 4th team is going to be 4 from TI5. And as I said, if 5 out of the top 6 TI5 teams aren't invited, I will be shocked. And it is actually possible. That's why I said I think once you get to 5 and 6 is when things get interesting, because that's when I think we're going to find out whether it will be eHome or possibly Fnatic.
I see.
Because I think right until now they're going right down the TI5 list.
And now, real quick, while we have a pause in the conversation, I'm not sure what happened to Slacks. I do want to remind everybody that...
he's on a laptop. That sucks.
I do want to remind everybody that while some of my overlay transitions don't look as good as I normally like them to, there wasn't a ton of time to prep for this thing. So please forgive me for some of my framing issues. But I really wanted to make sure that we had some sort of show up to talk about these invites as they happen, because it's just too much fun not to. And guys, I appreciate you being here. Again, this is Greg, What is Hip, Laird, Nahaz, and Knoxville and Nahaz, both statmen, and Nahaz also an analyst. I don't even know if I can call you a statman anymore. You're kind of just becoming the go-to analyst for a lot of these events.
Dude, I don't know what I am, but it's fun, so I don't think about it. I cannot believe I'm like seriously talking to groups about business ventures and esports. I'm almost 40 years old and gonna. I don't know. Who cares? It's fun. It's really freaking fun. If you have Ryu on Skype, by the way, I think he can hop in if we need an extra bite.
If he wants to send me a message on Skype, we can definitely get that done. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the countdown, see where we're at on that. 1 minute till the next announcement, assuming that the internet site doesn't completely fall to pieces. And I will go ahead and check for Ryu Uberus. There it is. So Ryu.
Can you kick Slacks out of this call so his icon goes away? It actually aggravates me.
It should be kicking him out in just a second.
Shut up, Greg.
Wait, so does anyone have any ideas for non-Vega? I mean, sorry, non-Vici? Do you think Secret, maybe?
Instead of Vici for this invite?
No. I think you might see VP.
There he is. Alan Ryu Anderson, also known as the discount Matt Damon, though I don't think you look as much like Matt Damon these days as you used to. How you doing tonight, sir?
I'm good.
37 seconds. Who's your pick for popping up next? You think it's a possibility of Secret, or is it going to be an easy VG?
Fourth place. I agree. I think I agree with Nahaz what he said. The top 4 from TI, and then when it goes 6th, 7th, 8th, it's going to be different.
Okay. So is that why you recommended him coming on, Nahaz? You knew he'd agree with you?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just standard though. That's how it has to be. Because it's different from the TI, where TI gets 11 or 12 direct invites, and this time it should only be like it's only 8. So you kind of have 10. Yeah.
Anyone else much prefer the lower invite? I much prefer.
I
this
argued
personally
before ESL. I actually argued that I only had 5 direct invites. And the only things that changed, that were relative. So the 4th is out, by the way. You should.
It is. It's officially Vici Gaming. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. The 2, 3, 4, all Chinese teams.
Yep. Also 2, 3, and 4 at TI. Like
exactly.
Right.
That's easy.
I think it's very, very easy to get wrapped up in regions and it's the same discussion I've had with a lot of people. Same thing I used to have every year in college basketball. People talk about conferences. It's stupid. At the end of the day, it's teams. And it just so happened that 3 out of the top 4. There you go. It just so happened that 3 out of the top 4 were from China. Whatever. They're really, really good teams.
Fair enough. All right, so these are the top 4. Top 4 at TI. This, I think we could argue when we talked up front, these might have been the no-brainer teams in some ways. So there may be a little bit of discussion about some of them. Do you think that these... Okay, let me ask you this. Why is the Chinese scene so strong by comparison? Or do you think that that's just because they had a good patch going into TI and we're going to see the emergence of a new region to sort of be a powerhouse in the next grouping? Was that too complicated? Shall I make the question easier?
This actually this is one for Ryu, I think.
It's for me? Okay, well...
Should I reword it? Okay.
It's kind of like all the previous TIs too, where all the Chinese scene teams, normally they, like at least 4 always end in top 8. Like they get at least, how many invites per year? 4 direct, maybe 10. 5 or 6 in total? 5 in total? Something around those lines. So basically they always scrim each other. They're always at the top, all these teams, and they're always playing. Like we had this one year where they didn't play that much. I think that was around the TI3 era with Alliance just dominating. But ever since then, they're always going to show up. And I just think there's always going to be, at least a 3 or 4 in the top 8 every year at TI.
Okay. Now, so you think that what is the reason for that? Is it just because they take the game more seriously culturally? They have better mechanical skills? I mean, that's my question, though. Do we see, like Europe, for instance, is a very, very strong region right now when I watch their teams play. Are we going to get to the point where we see European teams come in 2, 3, 4 soon?
I think Chinese teams have better infrastructure for good
I was
practice.
gonna say the same thing. Yeah.
Bingo.
Okay. So
They just stay together. Like even if they don't stay
critical
together,
point.
they get traded, and they
Yeah.
still all are cohesive and like each other.
Now, what world are we in that Greg just made an excellent point? No, that's absolutely. Sorry,
Correct.
that's absolutely critical. Like they have really good infrastructure. It's no accident that when you see these organizations like Vici Gaming that have multiple teams that have their like youth, their potential teams, they're all scrimming each other. They have very structured practice times. Like this is the kind of infrastructure that for example, NA has struggled with for quite a while. And it's no accident that these teams get good and stay good.
Where's my chips, Greg?
This is my breakfast, dude. It's a struggle.
Breakfast. What the hell
breakfast
is it?
breakfast of champions, Greg. Breakfast of champions.
So
Hey,
I
guys.
just ordered some Postmates. I ordered a sandwich. I'm pretty excited.
What's up, Knox?
Something pretty important is that someone called Nine Gaming just leaked on Reddit
Yeah. But,
what looks pretty legitimate. I don't know if we
but
should
we're
trust
not
it.
looking at it because this is more fun. You know, it's a draft show. You can look at it if you want. I refuse to because I literally have been waiting for this. Like this is something I look forward to.
Yeah, it would
No,
be
I don't
like
trust
cheating.
it. I wouldn't. I don't open these things.
Actually, I had somebody send me the message on how he figured it out. This guy, and it actually seems like it's a pretty legitimate list. He went into the actual files. Anyway, long story short, there is a leak on Reddit. If you guys are crunched on time, you don't want to listen, you got things to do, you can definitely go check that out. And I think honestly, the reveal is fun, but it's the chat about the reveals about the teams that are going that I'm really interested in. And that's I think what we're trying to accomplish here. So that's it, guys. I do appreciate you joining us. I'm not gonna say we because I know Nahaz has to go get some sleep at some point, as does Greg and pretty much everybody else. ESL was crazy, but I will be here through the entire selection process. Once they announced that they were doing this in 5 hours, I made some phone calls. I hired a babysitter. I made my wife take my mother-in-law out to dinner. I've made
Holy
arrangements
shit.
so that I can just take care of this. So
I stumbled out of my
Like if you're
bed
dying
and
from
sat down at my
cancer, I do
computer.
not care.
I will be here. I will be here. So you guys are welcome. I want you to stick around and spend the evening. We've got folks who are coming and going throughout the night. I'm joined here right now, for those of you who've just joined us recently, by Knoxville, What Is Hip, Nahaz, and Ryu, or Discount Matt Damon, if you prefer his more famous name. All guys who I think have done a lot of analysis and a lot of time in the scene. What are you excited most about for the major? And in terms of, you're most excited about seeing new teams, new meta, the idea of a major in general. What gets you the most fired up about this?
Okay, I want to take this first because I always get cut off. Okay, so this is kind of answering your question, but also stepping one step to the left. I really like the fact that they are inviting so few teams this time, as in 8 as opposed to 10. And there's more qualifier spots, and there's 2 qualifier spots per place, and it's guaranteed if you qualify, you're in. Because the format for the major is just a double elimination bracket, so there's a lot of variance in that. In 6 days, lots of things are going to happen, and you want to make sure that you actually do have the best teams there. So I would be very happy if they literally just took the 8 best teams, no question about region. If the defending champions went and played MMOs non-stop since, and they've only played a couple of scrims and they were terrible, then they wouldn't get an invite. Like, I'm happy with that. Happy with the teams we've got so far, because there's going to be so much variance in the double elimination bracket. Like, one upset and you're going to be potentially knocking out a champion.
Okay.
So I'm very happy about this, and that's what I'm excited about, is watching day 2 or day 3 when teams start going home one game after another.
Wait, so is it? I'm gonna sound really stupid right now because I haven't read the website really closely, but is it definitely confirmed? It's literally just double elim the whole time.
Yeah.
There's no like group or anything. Okay, I actually really like that. The one thing I really like about like the ESL 1 formats is the single elim tournaments. I think those are really cool personally, but double elim is also pretty good. I honestly fucking hate those giant ass group stages where like one team gets eliminated. I fucking hate those things.
I actually really
Hey,
like
group stages are
formats that are easy for fans to understand.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
And
Yeah, but
we're-
the thing
and
is-
we're all
the thing
bubble
is
bracket from TI4.
Groups are fun.
The
I
bubble
do not
bracket?
See
Oh,
your
God.
favorite
I do not like
teams
that.
play. You get to see your favorite teams play. I think single elim is just like a crapshoot though. Like if,
It is,
if
yeah,
we
it
had
is, it
single
is, it
elim,
is.
then
It's
then
definitely
RB would have won TI2 and
Yeah.
CDEC would have won TI5. Like,
Wow.
it definitely is less consistent.
Wow. I think you're thinking too much like an engineer, dude. As I accuse you frequently. To answer your question, by the way, Toffees, like I have no answer. I'm so excited for the whole damn thing. Like we're in a golden age right now in Pro Dota. There's amazing competitive parity. There's so many good teams, and you add into the mix so many young players that I think have really compelling stories. There are just amazing team storylines. I think 6.85 is going to be the best version of Dota balance-wise ever, just as 6.84 was. It's amazing, and just the overall fact that I think the scene is primed to grow just explosively. Some of the infrastructure is finally there. I mean, I'm talking to people that are interested in investing in the scene and putting money into various aspects, not just teams, but into analytical products. Yeah. I mean, it's just what is going to happen in the next 18 to 24 months in Pro Dota 2 is just going to be fucking amazing.
Yeah, there was actually an article in Fortune magazine, I think it was like 3 months ago, about an organization that's working on a 24-hour esports coverage network. So, I mean, there's just a lot of stuff out there that I think is really cool. And to me, that's the most exciting part, right? The idea that events like this, a major system that's trackable, continues to build the hype. But let me spin off something Knox said. He said he's happy to see the top 8 teams go to this tournament regardless of what region they're from. When we did the TI invite show, we talked a lot about region. Should teams from regions get an invite, whether or not they're the best of the top 8 teams, etc., because every region should be represented at something like the international. Do you think the creation of majors alleviates that stress and just says every major, every TI can just be the top teams that get direct invites because everyone has a chance to earn their way in?
Yes, and I think that was the big pro of the
I was
major
going to
system.
talk about this actually before you even said that.
Oh.
I was going to say this. I love the way they set up the majors where each region now gets to prove themselves. Like this is what you're fighting for. You're able to now compete on level field where you have equal amount of teams per se, getting invited. So this will be, the standard for the next TI if these regions do well. If not, then you'll only see like this last time only one Southeast Asian team like Rave not getting in. So we saw it before, and if this helps and the Southeast Asian teams that go, then you'll see more invites, and it's the same thing for the Americas. So we know Europe and China have always been great. So
the invite actually came out.
Wow, so they jumped. I thought it was a minute left, but apparently that is not the truth.
Well, the timer was actually 11 minutes when they started, but
it's that's Volvo. But that said, Vega got the invite. They're invited number 5. What do you think about that?
Order-wise, it's a little bit of a surprise, but content-wise, zero surprise. This team was a lock. I think they absolutely proved it this weekend that they belong.
Now that they've been invited, they were definitely a lock. Fuck you, Oz.
No, but I think we could all argue that they were a lock ahead of time. That's just Gerg being Gergy.
I think it's correct, though. You do 4 of the best at TI and then the 4 best on the patch recently.
I don't necessarily know that there's that.
You have Vega, C9, Fnatic, if that's the case. And then the last one is kind of from China, but I don't know what China had. Yeah, China had qualifiers. IG did really well, and for 2 of the qualifiers.
So you're saying you want to see 4 North American teams at the major? Are you on drugs?
What? That would be 1/4.
I see what you're saying.
How would that be on drugs?
That would be a quarter of the teams coming from North America. Do you think a quarter of the best teams in the world are from North America? I mean, maybe it's going to sound good to you given that you're all American.
I don't think it's as quite as stupid as you're making it sound.
Now, granted, 4 of us here live in North America.
Okay, hold on. What time is it? Are you drunk right now? What time is it?
I am not drunk. I am close. But no, it's like for North America. You'd think that you would rather have. Wow.
Of course, I would rather have, but that's not a very good example.
Well, it doesn't matter if it's. I mean, the point we've just made is
I can
top 8.
understand what you're saying. Secret and VP, right? It's really hard to overlook both of those teams. So Secret is going to be for sure. Whether or not VP, all right. So you have to then.
No, VP
the last
in.
slots are VP, Fnatic, and C9. That's between those 3 teams.
No,
and then
the last,
No, but
the
they're
last.
missing out on another Chinese team. Like you were the one who came on and said, look at the top teams in the world. Half of them are almost always Chinese.
So, all right,
So
so
there's eight-
this is,
okay.
that's why
18
we're
districts
debating
for
it.
Chinese.
Can we talk for a minute about the fact that, like, okay, I've been right so far, and the next 2 teams,
Definitely Tom has you. Definitely Tom.
the next 2 teams are going to be VP and Secret, and the last team is going to be one of eHome or Fnatic, and
I think you're right, but
I mean, I agree with you. I think that Secret will be next, just because
Ryu,
Envy's on
do
the
you
team
have
now.
C9 in?
Do I have who has C9?
Ryu, do you have C9 in?
I'm trying to figure out how they do it. Is it based off
eHome.
of performance?
Surely
recently?
eHome, boys.
But then,
Surely eHome.
okay, so
eHome
Secret's,
has currently
Secret's
got the
100%. There's no that's one
Yeah.
slot, and then you have to argue the fact between
Virtual
Fnatic. How did they do recently?
Terribly.
And
Terribly.
yeah, I don't think.
They're
not amazing.
What? Who did you say
Okay,
just
they
played
came-
terribly?
Oh,
Okay, they came
In
bottom
what
four at
world did
TF5.
Fnatic play terribly recently? That's ridiculous.
Okay, listen to this. Listen to this. They came bottom 4 at TI.
Mhm.
Okay. Then they made three changes on their team, and since then they won
Fine.
the Southeast Asian qualifier,
Fine.
and they got knocked out first. Sure, they got knocked
And
out
they-
by a team that came second. It's a small
And
sample.
they got
but
knocked
we
out,
just-
and they
There's
they
just nothing
pushed
conclusive
Secret.
to say that they deserve it. They deserve to go
pushed
through.
No, look, if Fnatic gets in, it's because Valve chose to represent every region with a direct invite,
Agreed.
which I think is legitimate.
There's already 2 outs per region.
Ben, you're asking me to defend a position that I don't agree with. eHome is obviously the better team.
I agree.
If you feel that Valve is inviting what they think are the 8 best teams, eHome gets the invite. I happen to think that Valve will allocate a direct invite slot to each region. I think it will be 1-3-3-1, and therefore I
$50?
think that, and therefore, because that's what I think is going to happen.
Well, I
Yeah,
feel like it's
I said $50. Side bet.
I feel like there's also a precedent
Fine.
that it's been like that. All right. Anyway, did you take the bet?
Wait,
Wait,
you wanna bet? I'll bet.
$50?
All right. So
Sure, why not?
I'm a huge fan of this.
so this is $50 that Fnatic will be on the list.
this is the RTZ
Yeah, I'll take 50
1v1.
bucks with you.
RTC
Fine,
1v1.
Stats man.
Sure, it's a coin toss.
Statsman.
And neither of you.
Although the last time that I made a bet on this show, no, I'm not going to get into that.
Doesn't Grant Grant owe you like $1,000 to
No, no.
charity?
He owes it to a charity, I think, still.
No, it's a charity thing. I'm just kidding.
All right. So that said, let's talk. We've got theoretically 6 minutes till the next invite comes out.
One more thing, because we actually, I wanted to come back to Ryu's point. I actually think people are really down on SEA, and why? Again, like
I think
MVP
it's-
Phoenix finished top 8 at TI. I mean,
Right.
like, perfectly reasonable.
In my mind, I think it's because all those teams like shuffled like crazy.
Then
Yeah.
if you play
And
SEA
there's- we
favorite
haven't really
over
seen that
America, like if you invite an SEA team and then you don't invite an America team, then that looks.
I feel like
You
honestly,
just invited EG.
Yeah.
EG is a TI winner. You cannot count them as an American team. Like that is the TI winner. So you're basically.
I don't know if I can agree with that.
Like,
I don't know if I
How
can
can you
agree
make
with
an argument for originality and be like, no, they're the best.
This is so good.
It is a TI winner. It does not matter what region it is from. It's like from last year from Newbie, how they got invited directly.
I got nothing, guys.
So what you're saying, Ryu, is that when one wins a TI, they lose all national ties and becomes a sort of independent, amorphous
Yes.
team?
Okay, it's an invite from America, yes, but it does not matter. It does not matter what region they are from. It should not matter.
Look, Valve
It should
is
not
a,
matter.
Valve is a business, and Valve is trying to grow Dota and its appeal to fans in all regions of the world. I think it is a legitimate decision for them to say that an SEA team gets an invite. I think Fnatic looks like a decent team. I agree that if we stack up resumes, Fnatic versus eHome, that eHome wins. But I do think Fnatic will get invited. I will not be surprised if it is eHome. Ben is my friend. I will take a 50-50 bet with a friend.
Okay, question. If Fnatic goes through, name 2 other Southeast Asian teams that deserve to win the qualifiers to go through?
See, I think, and that's where the struggle is,
It's
right?
fine. I think, but I don't think you can think that far ahead. Who?
Yeah, it is a weird way of thinking about it, right? But it's like
a stupid way of thinking about it
we-
after what we saw at TI. Are we really that confident
That's
in our ability? Are we really that confident in our ability to look at these qualifier teams and say, "Oh, this team sucks. This team does. All these teams suck."
That's true.
Or
Yeah.
who looked at CDEC in that qualifier
That's fair.
and said, a lot of people. I didn't even have CDEC in Seattle.
Right. No,
okay?
that's fair. And even to that point, a lot of
Like-
people looked at Vega and said they don't have a chance in this tournament at ESL. And then look what they were able
This
to do.
is-
So
I really
do get
am,
that.
am getting pissed about people hating on these teams after what we saw at TI. This is irrational.
Right. Complexity showed at TI that they could stand up a little bit. It was unfortunate that they got to play EG first, TI winners.
Yep.
So maybe.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. You cannot play favorites right now with SEA if you do not invite an American team. That is, and I still stand to my point.
I feel like Fnatic and C9 would be on like the same level for me in terms of if like performance-based
Yes,
invite.
they are.
Like,
Interesting.
But I agree.
Yeah,
with,
I
but
agree,
I
but I
agree
would
with
invite either of
Nahas's
them.
logic that basically, if you're gonna invite either C9 or Fnatic, it just makes sense to invite Fnatic because they're from C. But
Yeah,
I think
but the
Yum
other
getting
option
invited
is
is
to
also
invite
totally
neither.
acceptable.
I honestly do feel like we could sit here and debate whether C9 or Fnatic are the better team for a long time. I think that's I don't think that's clear at all. I agree with that.
And when we debate that, are we debating that as in their current performance or their overall skill cap coming up in the next couple of months?
A little both.
Okay.
Actually.
So you think that's
I-
potentially
I think-
comparable?
I mean, I think most people would say that C9 has played better than they expected.
Way
So moving forward, you
and-
just say continue playing that
and
well.
It's not just their results; it's that if you really watch their games and watch the fights and watch how they've moved around the map, like they've also played like a team that can improve. It's not just that they've played well. I feel like they've also shown that they have room for improvement on top of the results that they've posted.
All right. Now let me ask a quick question. I think we've already said that we think most of us think Secret's going to be the next invite listed here. Do you think that the listing order of these
go
teams?
VP.
You said VP. Do you think
I'll go-
do you think it has anything to do with skill level, or is it sort of just regional distribution?
They invited the top 4 and then they invited the winner of ESL, so Secret next does make kind of sense.
I
But it
think
could also
Secret
just be
next is
random.
reasonable. I think VP next is reasonable. I mean,
Could be either.
Yep.
All right.
That says VP, but I say that'll let you know, right? If it's VP next, then we'll know for sure that probably Secret will get the third invite, and then the last region will be
I don't know about
probably
that.
SEA.
I think it's hard for me to debate that line of thinking because I think that VP and Secret are in 100% anyway. But
It's Secret. It's officially Secret.
It's Secret.
Their logo is dark and hard
right.
to see.
Nahaz is wrong. Spam him. Spam him.
Spam him. So Secret gets the invite. As we wait for the next one, they're going to be the 6th team to have a direct attend. Now, obviously, I think for most of us, no big surprise that they got the direct invite. They have been directly invited to pretty much every LAN that I've seen listed thus far. Here's my question for you guys. We saw them do well in ESL, but I don't think we've seen a lot of them prior to that. And there was some question about the new Team Secret roster. Do they deserve all the LAN invites they're getting with the big changes? They're not the Secret that we knew going into TI in any shape. Do you think ESL dispelled any sort of doubt, or do you think Secret never deserved any doubt to begin with?
I think that they should not have gotten invited to all the tournaments they got invited to, but I think that at ESL, moving forward, they've sort of like proved themselves to be a capable team. But that's my personal opinion.
They made a lot of mistakes at ESL,
Yep.
but those are also mistakes that they can, like, they
I
weren't
think
like
they're going to be a
fundamental
good team
mistakes.
moving forward. I think
Exactly.
after watching them play at ESL, it's pretty hard to make an argument that they're not at least going to be competitive in like the top 6 teams moving forward. But I don't like inviting teams to LANs that are completely unproven, especially huge ones like ESL 1.
So I can agree with that, but like I said, ESL, it does seem like they stood up for themselves. They did better than some of the favorites, so definitely looking pretty good. On the list right now, based on what's in front of us, not based on the other 2 invites that are coming, do you think that there is a clear favorite for the majors at this point, or is it still too far away and the meta's changing too much to really decide?
I'd favor EG just because I think that their players are better than most of the other teams.
I don't see how you. I don't
also
see how you
think
could.
Peter. I think Peter is consistently an extremely good drafter, which is a huge advantage.
I wouldn't put money on any single team right now.
But yeah, but that being said, I would only edge EG I would edge EG a little bit more. I don't know.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm staying unbiased too because it's really hard to predict because you can never predict what one team's going to pick now. Once they shut down, we saw what happens even if you ban out Broodmother against Vega, they can still beat you in other ways. So you have to just prove yourself in every tournament. It doesn't matter what. And we've seen EG in a lot of tournaments, they lose because they're not in, there's no loser bracket. Like almost every single one, MLG, ESL, they always lose because there's no loser bracket. I'm not saying that's the reason why. I mean, it's just, it's something to note that it's not always going to be that simple just because of the patch.
What tournaments are there before the major starts, other than MLG?
I can pull up the list, I think.
Parts of the summit, I think. The summit will have a little bit of games. But you mean before the actual major?
Like actual lands, or you're just looking for tournaments that are having games?
Sufficiently large, yeah, on offline games. Any offline games.
Let me check my calendar.
When's DreamHack?
There's a really, really good document somewhere around here with all the...
All right, so while we figure that out, let me ask you this. There's a discussion...
Nanyang is before it.
Okay, so Nanyang. Is there anything else besides Nanyang?
This MLG and Nanyang are the only lands. Okay. But the summit will have a lot of games as well. Okay. And Starladder, actually.
So,
starting soon.
When does Starladder kick off?
Soon. I don't think they've actually released the schedule yet, but every day they're like, we're going to release the schedule tonight, we promise. So it'll be soon. Nice.
All right, so let me ask you this. You guys were discussing earlier Fnatic versus C9, these sort of final positions for the invite. I think that we've covered why Fnatic could potentially get the invite spot. I want to hear more about why you think maybe C9 could deserve that spot. Not just because of a regional argument or Ryu's dream that Evil Geniuses is no longer American or something like that. But the idea of why is it that C9 could have that spot? Is it because of skill cap potential, recent performance, team makeup? What do you think would potentially get them that invite?
C9, they're really good.
They're playing really well on this patch.
I mean, you watch them play, and you watch them play. They look like a really damn good team.
Ritsu especially has been playing really well.
Crap.
And I hesitate to say that. I think Ritsu,
I didn't know what to think about that kid, but he looks like he could be really cool.
Yeah. They're really good, but they're also kind of untested against non-American teams.
Yeah.
There's a weird dynamic between between Digital Chaos. I mean, whatever they is it.
Yeah, that's it. I think it's very possible that C9 will go to a LAN, fall flat on their face. The team will stop playing well, will disband in a couple months. Like, that's a real possibility in my mind. But I think it's also possible that Ritsu continues to play really well. And Brax, I mean, that whole team, actually, the individual performances in the game that I've seen have been really good. Even SVG, who I honestly have never heard of before he played on this team. Yeah. He even played really well. But this is NA. If they go to a LAN, fall flat on their face, team could explode. Like, that's the reality.
Yeah, but I like what I see from them, both in terms of individual talent, in terms of cohesion, and in terms of the consistency that they've shown. I think that this team, I mean, they have it, and whether or not that'll translate over time, whether or not the players will be able to continue to improve, that's very, very difficult to predict. But I think right now they have it.
All right, so we're running low on time for the next pick, and these are sort of the contested picks. Let me ask you this. It sounds like the panel is waffling between 4 potential picks here, and that is Fnatic, Cloud9, eHome, and Virtus Pro. Which of those 2 teams do you think are going to be 7th and 8th place? We'll start with, let's work around. So I'll go with Knoxville first because he always gets cut off, and with his Snoopy-looking headphones.
VP. Wait, I'm not muted, am I? I muted myself to hold myself back during the Cloud9 run. Yeah, it's VP. I mean, I tweeted earlier. I tweeted an order, and other than Secrets being a bit later, that order is stuck true. So I'm going to stick with that order and say...
All right, boys. I have to run, but it will be VP next, and then and then still think Fnatic, but it would not be... I would actually be happy with eHome. No, this is just what I think's happening.
No.
I love you guys. Thanks for having me on. I gotta
thanks for
run
coming by.
and chill with the family. You guys have a good time, and this is gonna rock.
Big shout out to Nahaz for coming all the way from ESL New York, dead tired, and joining us. I think he actually gave a lecture in class today before he got online. So thank you to Nahaz. I think we might have some other folks calling in to fill the lines. But Nahaz says VP is next. Knoxville says VP is next. Ryu, Hip, is there any question that that's going to be the next invite?
Despite all of my waffling about C9 and Fnatic, I think it's still going to be VP and eHome.
So, can you argue? I mean, honestly, eHome's performance in the East over the last couple of weeks has been dominant, to say the least. And on the other side of the coin, VP, I think, would have been ranked by a lot of people ahead of Vega Squadron prior to ESL. So, do you think that VP is still stronger than Vega, or do you think Vega is bigger than VP coming out of that region right now?
I think it's still going to be the 3-3-1-1 scenario, which I do believe it's unfair in this situation just because of EG being TI winners, but it has to be VP and probably still Fnatic. I don't want to side that way. I want to go differently. I do want to pick Cloud9 and Fnatic, but I just think it's going to be that way, where VP gets next, and then the last one they'll save probably for Fnatic.
All right. Now, just real quick, we do have a spot open, guys. So if you're hanging out in chat, you're an analyst, you want to get in on this and give your 2 cents, let me know on Skype, and I will get you in here as quickly as I possibly can. Love to have you. So what do you think? I think, Knoxville, you look like you had something to say about that VP sort of Vega comparison.
Well, okay, so it's a little bit unfortunate. Okay, so VP came
Are those...
in TI, like...
Hold on a second. Are you good with those chips there, Greg? Are you
I'm
okay
done,
now?
yeah, sorry.
All right, so
I
you're out
should
of
turn my
control,
compression
okay.
back on. I'm sorry.
You are out of control, Greg.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Hey, you should throw it up in the air and see if you can catch it in your mouth.
Continue,
I
Knoxville.
can't do that, dude.
Please continue.
So
I'd enjoy
Virtus.pro
watching.
Virtus.pro did pretty well at TI. Came 5th or 6th. Vega, they got knocked out. Okay, so first of all, they were one of the few teams to beat CDEC at the International. Second of all, the only 2 teams, the reason that they didn't get into the International is because 2 other teams went in from the wildcards. One of them came 2nd, and one came 8th, 7th and 8th. So, I mean, like, the fact that they didn't get in was just like a crapshoot between by the fact that there's 2 spots and 3 teams.
Right.
So, I think that their performance leading up to the International was really good. In the European qualifiers was a stellar performance. A little bit lacking right at the end against Na'Vi. That was like the one big upset. And they played like the most games on 6.84. They've played the second most or most on 6.85. They play so many tournaments. They don't say no to big tournaments. They're not like very exclusive or elitist. They just play a lot, and they've got better over time. They've just slowly improved.
All right.
Sun Tzu would suggest that they reached like kind of a local cap, but I mean, so what?
So here is, I'm going to interrupt you because it's officially out. Virtus Pro is the 9th team invited, and that gives us 2 from the region. If you throw Vega into that, it means only 1 spot left in a, I would say, fairly contested section. So Virtus Pro, it sounds like from our discussion, no argument there that they should be in this top 10 or top 8 position. And that just leaves us the last spot. Before we do that, do you guys have any other thoughts on Virtus Pro and what you expect out of them going forward? Do you think that they are a team on the up or a team on the decline?
Neither.
Neither. Fair enough.
Yeah, I cannot answer that without watching another big tournament with them being in it, because they did just get knocked out of ESL. But I don't think ESL is ever going to prove anything, just because all the major big tournaments that are going to be coming are going to be double elimination. So you're always going to have that second opportunity to prove yourself again. And with VP, they're one of those teams that, yeah, sure, you can beat them once, but can you beat them again? They always find a way to come back, and it's really hard to go against them.
They also lost to a team that was playing with a stand-in. It's very hard to like guess how a team is going to play. First of all, a team that you haven't seen a lot of, but also a team that's playing with a stand-in. It's like really, really difficult to try. Like, also their preparation was for eHome for a long time, and then a week before changed to IG. It's pretty annoying.
Slacks is back, looking good as always with your. I think you have leggings on. Apparently.
With Sayori.
How you doing, Slacks? How is
He's on some dumpster tier internet. Holy shit.
Must be Comcast.
How does Butlet have internet that's that bad? Are you on his neighbor's Wi-Fi, Slacks?
Is he just giggling? Is that all? Yeah, no, that's all we got. So Slacks came in to
Honestly,
giggle.
That's his best contribution to anything he's done in the last couple of years. Honestly, it's pretty much it.
Oh, man. Comes in. All right, so last spot. 3 people on the docket. I'm going to name the 3 teams. I want each of you to actually say who you think gets the last spot and why you think that they should get it. Or why they shouldn't get it, but maybe somebody else should, even if you think that they're the ones who are going to land that spot. So, eHome, Fnatic, C9, and if there's someone else you want to throw in the discussion, go ahead, but I don't think that there really is. Ryu, who do you think gets it, and why do you think that they get it?
I think Fnatic will get it, but I think out of those 3 teams, the strongest would be eHome, and they would probably deserve it more.
Okay.
Okay, so my like thinking answer is obviously eHome, but I want C9 to get invited, but I don't think it's gonna happen. It's like basically impossible.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
That's my answer.
Okay, and Nox?
eHome should get it. eHome will get it. Viva eHome.
All right, Viva eHome. Now we're going to bring in Skim because, as I think Knoxville pointed out earlier, there was far too much North America in this group and not enough regional. So Skim, European gentleman, up late last night with Around the Pit, going to still be awake to watch the release show, jumping in when he loads. There he is, Skim. Who do you think's going to get that last invite spot?
eHome. Actually, no, C9.
Real? What?
Here's the reason.
You can't actually think that's the real invite. Like,
What did Conrad promise you to say that? What did he promise
Conrad
you?
doesn't even. I don't think Conrad cares about C9 now.
Conrad, he still loves C9. Well,
He
okay,
still
so
loves C9,
what's
that's
your
true,
reason,
yeah.
Skim? What's your reason?
China is strong as it is, but at the same time, after you get the top teams, there's a huge fall off. Like, can you actually name 6 or 7, I guess, Chinese teams that are really strong?
Can you name 6 or 7 teams from any region that are really good, Skim?
That's fair.
CDEC. DK sucks now.
Yeah, exactly. DK sucks. HGT sucks hard. Nubi,
What about
Nubi
IG?
Y.
IG?
I said IG already.
He said IG
sorry,
already.
I didn't see that.
So
There's
it's
like
a huge
5.
fall off after the Chinese. Like after you have like the 5 or 6 Chinese teams, like finding that 7th is really difficult actually. Whereas finding 2 more reasonable NA teams, in my opinion, is much easier. Although I would say that in terms of strength, yeah, of course, eHome is definitely one of the top 8 teams probably in the world right now.
I
But
don't know if you heard the discussion we had earlier, but we kind of said it's weird to think about it like that because otherwise we should definitely not invite C9. Like we were having a discussion.
Yeah, I know you had that discussion, and you said that about the C region, right, with Fnatic and Nahas got really angry. But at the same time, that has happened before. You can't tell me that the TI invite for Fnatic, or TI5 invite for Fnatic, wasn't half bullshit. I don't think that at the time Fnatic was one of the top 10 teams in the world.
Sure, but there were 10
always.
invites. There were 10 invites.
Rave
What?
performed way better in the previous months than
Oh
Fnatic
my
did.
god.
That was the discussion we had.
We've already had this.
It was a discussion, that's true. So, and there were many schools of thought on this. So you're saying that based on the fact that that happened, C9 has the potential to get this 10th spot or 8th spot?
I think there's a reasonable assumption that they have a chance, but at the same time, I mean, eHome is definitely top 8 team material. So
Right.
I guess it kind of depends on what kind of things Valve was looking at. Are they really considering region distribution, and are they considering hell? Do we actually care, or do we think that
Along those lines, though, if that's what they're considering, and that let's say that they don't take eHome because they're saying, well, that's just too much from that region, then isn't 5 Jungs in that conversation as well, or do you think it's just because Ryu's theory of EG not being an American team stands true, so C9 gets that spot?
But 5 Youngs have got no LAN experience, and they're not an existing team technically. They're no less existing than Secret, who has 4 subs, but they haven't played on LAN. And Valve have said in the past that they value LAN performances a lot.
It has to be
And,
eHome.
and one other thing is also that for the whole Rave thing is that for TIs there were 10 invites, and here there's 8. I think if you have 10 invites, maybe there's a case for C9 being one of the number 10 or number 9, but I don't think probably number 10. I think IG, See, if there were no region issues, then IG would be number 9 and C9 would be number 10.
Okay. You think IG is good enough to be in the top 8?
IG's less than eHome. You'd have to have eHome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
eHome,
IG would be
C9
no.
and Fnatic.
eHome would be number 8. He's saying.
Like, eHome is 8, IG 9, Fnatic 10, C9 11. But like the Fnatic, like those 3 could come in any order.
They could swap what in any order?
Those 3, 2 of them could be 9 and 10. You know, like they could be in any order you want.
Okay. All right. So right now, though, it sounds like I've got 3 of you saying eHome and 1 of you saying Cloud9. Which I'm honestly not surprised that Skim saying Cloud9. Oh, that's right. Okay, so Rai's on Fnatic. We've got Nox and Hip saying it's eHome. Skim says it's Cloud9. I'm going to lean towards eHome just because I think that they have been absolutely dominant in their scene lately, and not seeing them with a direct invite would be
Actually, I take it back. It has to be home because didn't they qualify for?
Yeah, they did, and they didn't.
They had visa problems.
They didn't get a visa.
Yeah.
All right, I take it back. I actually casted that too. Take it back. eHome's taking this.
We're awful.
Okay.
eHome actually have the highest current elo of any team in the world right now.
Right.
Like that's how good they are.
I'm actually, and honestly, and I'll probably get flamed for this. I'm surprised that eHome wasn't invited in the position. And when you talk about like order of Eastern teams invited, that they weren't invited in the position even of LGD. To be honest with you, I think that their recent performance trumps what LGD's past performance has been in the previous patch. These guys have been absolutely outrageous, and we're not getting any new patches before the majors.
But the thing, once again, is LAN.
I'm not sure that's true.
Just a sec. I'll speak to that because I initially thought so as well. Initially, when I initially said that eHome deserves an invite more than LGD, but LGD came in 3rd. You can't really deny that they lost 2 players, but they still have like 3 really key players, and they have RTK, which was like the star or like the leader of eHome, right? So if anything, they're just as strong, potentially maybe even stronger, depending on how long this goes. So I don't think that you can say that just because eHome has been really strong now that you can really, delete the past from LGD. I don't think you can neglect the whole, they just came in 3rd kind of thing.
Okay. All right. So we're waiting to see who this last one comes out is. It'll be pretty interesting. What'd you say?
It's 1 minute.
1 minute, yep. So it's on the way. We've all made our declarations, waiting for this to come down the pipeline. After that, we get the pleasure of going into sort of qualifier announcements, which should be a lot of fun as well. It seems like if this is a Chinese team, if eHome gets this invite, then the Chinese qualifiers might be kind of boring and just not a ton of fun to watch. Because are there a lot of other teams that can be competitive with these 4 Chinese teams that are already theoretically invited?
BG and IG. And
Kung Fu,
he's
HGT,
he's talking about
potential. CDQI, DK, DB2. I don't even know who they are.
Those aren't
there's a lot.
competitive though. Like
Those
unless they
competitive.
drastically improve during TI and like after
Yeah,
TI.
But there's lots of teams always in like the Southeast Asian and Chinese teams which are like not academy teams that you've never heard of.
Okay,
because they're not allowed to get into premium tournaments.
I just want to throw this out here before the last. Oh.
It's out. It's official. It is eHome. So we're going to put that up on the screen.
Easiest $50 of my life.
Easiest $50 of your life. You probably just went and checked Skype and knew it was coming. So no, eHome does get the last direct invites. That is going to be the top 8 teams: Evil Geniuses, CDEC, LGD, Vici Gaming, Vega, Team Secret, Virtus Pro, and eHome. Gentlemen, are any of those infuriating to you? Are any of them something worth really sort of saying, I don't agree with that? Or do you think this is going to make for a really great major?
I think it is kind of outrageous that Valve invited EG. I mean, they came in last at ESL, right?
Just remove him from the call. I can't handle this trolling right now. It's too early.
Hey guys, all the qualifiers are R2, by the way.
Yeah.
No, it's
wow.
I mean, none of those look surprising. None of the qualifiers look surprising to me, really. Except ball.
If you're saying the best 8 teams in the world, then that's correct. Right now.
That seems like the best 8 teams.
Okay, so, wow. So that's the best 8 teams. And then on top of that, they also literally just dropped the entire list of qualifiers on us at the exact same time. So we are going to take a look at all of those together. And actually, I think Jenkins from Imagine wants to get on the call. So we're going to add him in just a minute or two. But let's go over this list of qualifier invites. And that is America, Cloud9, Complexity, Digital Chaos, Pain, Sector 5, Archon, Imagine, Void Boys, that Southeast Asia, which is a little bit of a chat that we had earlier. Fnatic, Maneski, MVP Phoenix, MVP Hot 6, Rex, Regum, I can't pronounce the last word. Signature RRQ, Signature Trust, Team That, TNC Gaming, and China Qualifier, CDEC Youth. You guys actually brought that up. FTD Club, Invictus, Newbie Young, Tong Fu, Wings, and Fantuan. And then Europe is going to be 5 Jungs, Alliance, CIS Rejects, Monkey Business, Navi, Ninjas of Pajamas, and Stark Esports.
And 4CL.
And 4CL.
Does VG, I guess the biggest thing is, does VG had a player swap recently?
VG?
Vici Gaming?
Yeah.
Well,
what the hell are you talking about right now?
I
I'm
have
super
no
confused.
idea what he's talking
There's
about.
You
one player
actually just
when
went off
Carl
the
left him
defense.
all.
Dear
It's
Diary.
China. Is there VG? Am I crazy?
Vici is invited to the tournament.
Yeah.
What are
like,
you fucking talking about?
Oh my god.
What are you smoking?
I'm so dumb.
Yeah.
I'm high.
No, you know what? You're done.
I'm done.
you're out of
It's
control.
cut me
You're
off,
done.
guys. I don't know why. That VG?
Yeah, he's kicked. He's gone. He's gone. I can't deal with that. You're
I was
done.
like, what the fuck is happening? right
You
now?
are dead to
I'm
me,
losing my
bruh.
mind.
You are dead to me, bruh. All right, let's
Bro, it's not my fault. I was high.
So the big
Can
missing
somebody-
thing, the big missing thing.
Did he
that-
join back up? Get out of here.
Oh my god, out of control.
All right, let's hear what you got, Nox.
Empire's not listed, and chat is going wild. Where's Empire? Where's Empire? They lost their spots, or because they made roster changes after the deadlock.
Yep.
So they are going to be going by the open qualifiers. Where, I mean, I don't want to say they have a great chance, but they have a good chance. It is probably single elimination or something. So
Yeah, that's the
They-
same as my team as well. Since we
Oriel
kicked their-
Esports, same bucket as them last time.
So let's do this. I think Jenkins is going to be joining us here on the call.
Can I just quickly mention something?
Yeah,
as
go
well?
for it, Skim.
First Departure's not in it, and I'm not. I mean, I'll be honest. I haven't followed the C scene after TI much, but isn't First Departure with like Miracle and stuff? Did they also violate the roster change, or what happened? Because
I saw
If-
something
if
on
they-
Reddit suggest.
Because if they didn't change the roster, like they're definitely one of the invites to the qualifier.
Right. Well, let's do this. I'm going to take a quick second here because I haven't had a break in almost 2.5 hours. So I want to take just 1 minute to sort of gather my thoughts, and then what I want to do is, if you gentlemen want to stick around, I would appreciate it, but I want to run through America qualifier list, then SCA, then China, then Europe real quick as we wrap this thing up. So take a quick break. I'll probably run a commercial since that way you don't have to see me walking around and stretching my legs, and when we come back, let's jump into the America qualifier and opinions on that. If you guys want to stick around, you're welcome to. If not, just let me go, but we'll be back in about 60 seconds with a with chat about the American qualifier. Not anybody with ad block can still hear us, but I just needed to relax for a second.
Oh yeah, stretch those calves. Oh.
Jenkins.
Feel the burn,
Jenkins.
office.
Imagine you guys are going. That's cool. That's
Are we?
exciting.
Yeah, we're going good.
Are we? I'm kind of bummed they did it this way. Like I thought they were going to release them in rotation like last time. It's a little bit of a downer.
Yeah, you would think so. I'm actually really surprised about the list. There's like some really important missing people on here.
Yeah.
I guess we'll like wait to talk about it, but yeah, bit of an issue.
All right, anyone who thinks this is a burger, you're an idiot. It's a turkey sandwich. Everyone fucking relax.
Dude, you can eat a burger. You can eat a burger. I'm not here to judge.
Where'd
Delicious.
Where'd you get that from? I didn't see you get up and leave to go get food.
Oh, I got up. It was a little bit. It was like 10, 15 minutes ago. I got up. I got some delivery. Holy shit, it's spicy as hell, though. Woo.
Nice.
Where's it from?
It's from this place called The Lunch Pad in San Francisco.
Oh.
It's very delicious.
That sounds nice. All right, let's do this. We're back, boys. Let's talk about the American qualifiers. I am joined here on the Coffee with Toffee Selection Show special by What Is Hip, Skim, Knoxville, and Andrew Jenkins. I love that you have your name in parentheses. They can't see that, but I can. All right, American qualifiers were released en masse, as were all of the other qualifiers. Let's talk about them specifically and just go down the list. Surprise, no surprise. You know, is there somebody who was left out? And that is, so Cloud9 is on there. I think none of us, any questions about that. We knew that they were going to get invited. In fact, we thought they might even get a direct. So they get in there. Go ahead.
All right, sorry, no, wrong side.
All right, Complexity
I'm out
Gaming
of control.
gets picked up now here as well. Direct invite after their TI performance, not a surprise from me. Pain, Sector 5, Team Archon, which is Team Fire of I think a week and a half ago. Fluff and Stuff's new team that has put up a good performance, got into ESL. Not surprised by that invite. Team Imagine or Team Leviathan, is I thought you guys were staying as Leviathan. Andrew Jenkins here as a guest on the show is with Team Imagine. That's got to feel pretty good to see your names listed there.
Oh yeah, it feels really good. I mean, we are Leviathan now, so this Team Imagine, I don't know who that is. It's somebody else.
So really though, that's you guys though, right? Not...
Yeah, no,
okay.
that's us. That's
okay.
us. We changed our name back though for whatever reason. I don't know. The corporate guys are all figuring that out. I'm just playing some dope.
Might be because
right.
the person in charge of Team Imagine was the most hated person on the internet for 2 to 3 days.
Yeah,
it's
until everyone realized that actually he's not the exception. That's just the entire pharmaceutical industry
in general. Yeah, absolutely. So Team Imagine gets in, Void Boys gets in. Who's missing? Who do you wish was on there? Who are you happy with?
Okay, so I guess I had a little list here prepared. So I had guaranteed invites who are actually going to be Cloud9 because obviously they're, I think, probably the top team in America other than obviously EG. Mm-hmm. And then Fire because they qualified for ESL. Digital Chaos because of their obvious potential given the players. Complexity because they went to TI. And then High Council because they have the...
we kicked Claire.
They violated.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. That's.
Yeah, we kicked Claire after the deadline.
So that's
Good
obviously
job.
why they didn't get invited. And then I assume they're probably gonna make it through the open qualifier. And then for not guaranteed invites, I had Leviathan, Sector 5, Unknown, Void Boys, Root, Team Uporn, Union Gaming, T-Show. But I'm sure like a third of these teams have violated the roster violations because obviously it's North America. However,
did you say Root, by the way? Did you say Root?
Yeah, I said Root.
As violated their...
No. Root as an invite, a potential invite, not a guaranteed invite.
But they made roster changes. They made roster changes as well.
Okay, so like I said, like I'm pretty sure like a third of the potential invites made roster changes, which is why it makes it like really easy not to choose them. I'm a little surprised by Void Boys because I heard they picked up Pat Soul again. Maybe he was
They did. I think they registered with that lineup though from the start.
Maybe he was a sub or something like that. I'm pretty sure you're allowed to.
Yeah, I think basically what happened is like they registered with because Void Boys did not have a team like 2 weeks ago. Like you couldn't scrim them because half of them were still living in China.
Yeah.
But I think they just registered like the 7-man team that it possibly could be.
Gotcha.
Hey Jenkins, can you tell me the top 3 South American teams?
Yes. Sector 5, T-Show, and probably Unknown. But I haven't actually had the pleasure of playing Unknown in anything. But I just know they're like a really volatile team in the sense that they can like dethrone anyone because they play like really wacky Dota. T-Show is like incredibly good, and then Sector 5 is just. I mean, that's old, not today, right? We've seen them, like, they used to take games off of, like, Na'Vi and stuff in their prime. Like, they've always been able to take a game off of anyone, which is why I think they deserve an invite, even though their results haven't been the best lately. That's my 3.
Also, I do want to ask you this question really quickly, Jenkins, while we got you here. And, you know, the owner of your team being one of the richest men ever, of course, because of pharma, you think they get you guys some headboards or something for your bedrooms? That's maybe some wall decorations.
Oh, come on, dude.
I'm just saying. I mean, it was nice of him to get you an extra pillow, but...
Oh, no, I got 4 pillows.
Carrie's got to rest his head.
Who's Mischief?
Oh, Mischief.
In the American scene.
I actually totally forgot about them, but they made
a roster change.
Yeah, they made roster changes. I think they'll probably get through the open qualifiers. They're really, really good.
Well, there's only 2 spots in open qualifiers.
Who's on Mischief?
Can I just bring something up, guys?
Yeah.
Knoxville, do you have access to some like document where you can see which teams violated the roster rules? Because you seem to know.
No, it's someone messaged me with a lot of them. So.
Oh, must be nice. That's cool.
Yeah. I've got the others. When we get to the other regions, I'll bring them up.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so in the interest of time, and we'll move through this because I think this, you know, the qualifiers are still sort of up in the air as to who's going to land where. When you look at this America's qualifier list, there are currently 2 spots from that list that are going to be given to people from the American qualifier, and I will allow us in this discussion to include some teams that maybe made roster changes that are potential winners in this process because they get through the open. Who do you think are the most likely to take those 2 spots?
Cloud9. Both.
You think
God,
Cloud9
I
will
hate
get
you
both
so
spots?
much.
It's really hard. You know, I would just say you could say easily top 4 teams in America is just rotating around Complexity, Cloud9, GC, and Archon. Like all those teams can kind of take games off of each other. I would still put Archon like 4th or 3rd. Like they still didn't perform in the other qualifiers. C9 has performed the best out of all the teams so far in all the qualifiers. They've qualified for 2, right? Nayang and
ML, no.
and
Who
ML.
qualified for
who
MLG?
Who got MLG? Wasn't it Cloud9 as well?
They got 2, right? I think it's MLG.
I checked, but if I open another browser, I think my computer's going to crash.
I could check.
So let me ask you.
I have to say, I think Archon is way better than Complexity or DC right now.
I think that Archon,
like considerably better.
Now,
Wait, just as a disclaimer, who do you work for, Greg? Who do you work for?
HCWP. I don't work for anyone.
Yeah.
I'm independent.
He's independent.
It's
at
just
this
showing
point.
how unbiased you are. You're like the Mr. Neutral, right, Joe?
So, but let me say this. So, when you say that, when you say you think Archon or previously Fire is better than the other teams, especially Digital Chaos, etc., are you saying they're better right now, or do you think they're better in their overall skill cap? Because I think that
What does that even mean?
Well, I think if you look at some of these teams, they have a lot that they have a point where you're like their individual skill is great if their synergy and if their teamwork can really sort of get on the level that we're used to, and I think that we need to see.
How are you going to say that about DC when half those players are like brand new to this level of competitive? I mean, Complexity, like they have laning issues.
Let's all take a reference, like right back. Take a step back, Greg, and look at this reference too. What happened to Team Tinker? Can you hear that fucking phone call?
No.
Just hold on.
Can't hear that.
Actually, that's pretty good. All right. Anyways, I'm tired of the phone ringing all day. Besides the point, so Team Tinker, they were supposed to win qualifiers, right?
And then they got
didn't. It could be the same situation. We do not know who's going to come out on top on America. I would say for sure though, you put all your monies in your basket on Cloud9, and second place I do not know.
Well, that's the other thing is
okay,
you don't even guarantee. Okay.
Sorry, this is the bias, like the slightly biased part, but HCWP, if everything lines up, if Mason doesn't tilt, if Jimmy doesn't tilt, I promise can be extremely, extremely competitive with these teams. But that's a lot of ifs. But I think you can't count them out, even though they do have to come through the open qualifier.
Okay.
I mean, it has Mason, Demon, like just look at the roster of the team. If you want to talk about skill cap, it's pretty high.
Knox, what were you saying?
I was just going to say that it's not even guaranteed that the teams that win the open qualifiers are the best teams.
Right. Because
you get some teams that are like really, really good against their regional teams, but terrible against everyone else, and the opposite. You get teams who, like, I think Tinker would have gone further than Archon, for example. But I mean, that's just like my opinion on it. But like, it's very, very likely that Tinker could have gone further than Archon had they won the qualifier. It's just like one more hurdle that you have to get through.
Right.
The problem is that every single race, you're not necessarily racing against the same group of people.
Well, and the open qualifiers has a lot more of an any given Sunday sort of vibe to it than the regular qualifiers do.
Is it all like best of ones again?
It's
like
best of ones in semis.
It's a meat grinder, man. Like I don't know, you have to get really lucky to get through. Or you need to have the most resilience of any team. It's so hard.
Absolutely. So I think open qualifiers, that's tough. That's tough.
Yeah, it's on Face It, but it's best of one until the semis. So that's pretty brutal.
Or until the quarters, isn't it?
It's not even. It's not even hard in the sense that like the teams are really, really sick, and like the team you're going to be playing in the finals, like oh shit, like they're so good. No, it's that you're going to have played like 15 games of Dota, and you're going to be asked to play another one, and another one, and another one.
And I think even to add to that, Jenkins, keep in mind the idea that some of those top teams, like Tinker ran into in the open qualifier last time, all of the teams that are open qualifier teams trying to make a name for themselves, they see I'm up against Team Tinker, it's time for that pocket strat. It's time for my best strategy to use against this team. So not only are you now going through a really tough meat grinder time-wise and fatigue-wise, you're going against a lot of teams who are putting literally the stuff that they've been practicing nonstop up against you, and that's a tough thing to do. Jenkins, when you look at this list, who do you think, and let's say we have to take Imagine out of it for one of you guys gets some viral sickness and ends up dying, so you can't qualify. Who are the next two?
That'll probably be me.
But I'm just saying, who are the teams that when you look at this list, you think are going to be the biggest difficulty for you to get through in this qualifier?
Number one, I actually have Canadian healthcare, so I can't die of sickness.
Okay, well, that's good for you.
Say I get hit by a train or something. Okay. Obviously, Cloud9 is #1. Complexity, I think they're struggling right now, and if they can't get their shit together, I don't think they're gonna have much of a chance. But you have to respect the fact that Swindle can always like hype up a team. He's really, really good at that. They'll go like black and white between tournaments. They could own for this. However, I would say that I don't know. Number 2 would be probably Archon or High Council. Those are my 2 because they're really consistent. They've really high tier players, and then their skill cap's really, really high. And I would actually give give them a really high potential for like meeting or being like, I don't know, 90% of their skill cap for this, because they've experienced players who can help like the newer players kind of get in the zone for like the magnitude of the tournament this is. So I would say Archon or High Council for second place for those reasons.
Okay. Anybody else? What do you got? I think Skim hasn't weighed in on this yet before we move on to the next topic.
I pretty much agree, actually. That's pretty much my same assessment. I think Cloud9 is definitely the favorite, disregarding the fact that, yeah, technically after EG, it's like a hustle. Like, technically you could see that 4 to 5 teams are fighting against each other on equal terms for second spot in NA. But I think Cloud9 is currently ahead. And then I do, think that Archon or even Greg's team could potentially take second place in that qualifier, just because they have so much skill and experience.
My worry about High Council is not the Americas qualifier, it's the Open qualifier. Just because it's so many games. Like, so many games, it's so many best of ones, it's so high variability. But I think if they make it through the Open qualifier, they'll have a good chance.
I completely agree with that. They'll have a really good time in the qualifier, like the main qualifier.
I hope they get Necroed, Wisp, Undying, and get wrecked.
Thanks, Alan. I'll be sure to mail you something nice.
Like, they actually
maybe a bag of shit.
There's so many games that it's like statistically likely that they will play against that bullshit lineup. Like, they will. They have to play like 50 games, so.
So it's tough.
It also depends how many teams signed up. There has not been a lot of signups so far, so.
Well, and along those lines, guys, if you do want to sign your team up for the Open qualifier, you can head over to Face It right now.
The other thing, which is interesting, is the way that these qualifiers are set up. There's actually 2 separate tournaments. Like, there's 2 slots. Those are actually the result of 2 completely separate brackets, and you can play in both of the brackets. Yeah.
Really?
Because otherwise, if it's just one single elim tournament and a break to top 4 is double elim, you could have got knocked out by the best team in round.
So are they running at the same time, the 2 brackets?
No.
No, I think it's over 2 days or 2 weekends, or staggered or something.
So most of the teams registered for the Open are registering for both of those.
We've registered for both.
Wow,
for instance.
That's a forgive my French, a metric shit ton of grinders.
I mean, obviously, if you win the first one, then you don't have to play in the second one, but it's potentially a lot of games. Yeah, but I think it does kind of help with that variability that we're talking about.
Well, I guess you could also go ahead, Knox.
Whatever.
Well, you could also maybe argue that this will. For a lot of teams that are going into the Open, it's because they had roster changes, right? Like your team, Greg, and the other teams. Yeah. That maybe this meat grinder could galvanize a team to the point where if they come through this, they're going to be incredibly strong going into the American qualifiers because of what they've had to deal with together to get to this point.
Well, the other thing is, like, okay, sure, even if you've got like 90% chance of winning a single game, if you got to play 10 in a row, there's only like 35% chance you make it out. And if you do make it out of that, then you have to go. Almost no one's seen your games. So like in the case of Unknown.xiu, the Peruvian team, when they went through last year, like there were like 2 games, professional games, that anyone had ever seen of them that they could get hold of, and they could pause and they could watch everything. Unless obviously someone had a VOD or something like that. But it's just such a huge advantage if you're the Unknown team and a strong Unknown team that goes into a group with kind of like relatively well-known big teams. You're at such an advantage.
All right, makes sense. So any last thoughts before we move on to the SEA qualifier talk?
I just want to point something out on that note. To be fair, there was a lot of strategizing between teams that were scrimming in like different brackets, and there was a lot of information being traded about teams. So
welcome to the International, Jenkins.
Yeah.
So, information is sacred.
Unknown was very figured out just from scrims. Everyone knew they had the Huskar player. Everyone knew about the Tinker. Everyone had
interesting.
At least I don't. The NA teams. I mean, NA has Bulb in it, like master fiends. You know, they all fucking fiend with each other. They scrim, they fiend more.
Now, is this the sort of thing where it's like you lose a game and you're like, God damn, we lost that scrim. Their Huskar is good, or is it like, hey, I got some secret information for you, so you can dick these guys over?
It's pretty much like, hey, I'll trade you secret information for like the dickheads in your group for the dickheads in my group.
I
It's
see what
like,
you're saying.
Sure, all right. I mean, I'll take that. I want to win the international. I'll take that.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah.
It's the wild west.
I don't want to elaborate, but yeah, he's right.
They should make all the open qualifiers be like on a ticket or something. Like even if it's through Faceit. Just so it's like kind
each
of
team should move to a different region for the before the qualifiers and then scrim the other.
Oh my
God! Not talk anymore.
I'm just trolling, dude. Relax.
Oh my God!
Damn it!
Ryu.
I made VG potential earlier too. Come on.
All right, so let's move on to SEA.
Just a quick point, just to what Knoxville said. According to the Reddit post from Too Good, all games are on Dota TV with a ticket.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Really,
Okay,
but I thought they couldn't do that with the Faceit.
I don't know.
Actually,
all games are on Valve servers.
I remember reading a
have
post.
the technology?
No, I remember reading a post. I think Mikey mentioned that they're not doing it on the they're doing it on the Dota servers. It's not. It's Faceit's running it. Faceit's running the bracket, but it's not their system of like matchmaking, throwing you together. I guess.
Okay. Well,
So
that's really good.
It's very
we'll
good.
all be able to look at that stuff.
I mean, yeah.
so that's exciting. Let's go to SEA because
All right, I'm actually gonna duck out.
All
I
right.
have to eat, like eating my food, but
big thank you to Hit for stopping by. It was great having you, and we will see you soon. I'm sure you'll be on an episode around the pit eventually.
I'm gonna dip too. I don't really know anything about SCA or China, so.
No, but Jen can stay.
I don't want to
Like
speak
the fire
up.
needs the rain.
Like the fire
That's
needs
true.
the rain.
Just I'm
I'm
just
a big
not
fan of
qualified.
America. All the band, at least.
All right. Well, feel free to bounce if you need to. We're going to keep on rolling, but I appreciate you stopping by to chat with us, Jenkins. This is, of course, Jenkins from Team Imagine / Team Leviathan. Congratulations, by the way, on your American qualifier invite. Excited to see a team that has been together for a while and has started, I think, in a lot of ways from the ground up, getting to this point and doing so well. So kudos to you guys. I can say that because I've been following them for a very long time from SECS on. So I'm always excited to see the Team Leviathan do well. And I think that you guys could get through, and that's the thing. I think nobody said that.
This time,
wait.
we actually
I do think it's a
can.
possibility.
I need to make a team for the open qualifier.
Oh
Yeah,
my
you
God!
can.
Would you stop having like these
Ryu,
lightning strikes
Ryu.
as stupid here?
I'm here.
Dude, I'll support. It's gonna be a terrible experience for all of us.
And I'm gonna take Andrew from his team.
All right, so let's continue forward on this march as we make our way through all this qualifier discussion. Southeast Asia. The discussion was basically this: is anybody else besides Fnatic even worth taking note of? I assume that none of us are experts in SEA. I can't get Baby Oling on right now. I don't have a SEA expert on standby. What do you think?
I will say that TNC is a really impressive team. Like after TI came they came out guns blazing. Disregarding whether they made changes or not, they just played really well after TI. They were really impressive, really aggressive. You can ask LD and Gods. They were both really impressed with these guys as well, and they're really talented. So did they make changes?
Apparently,
Because they're on the list.
so all of my inside info is from Scant, who
Gotcha.
used to cast pretty much all of the Join Dota, co-cast all the Join Dota SCA coverage, and he's like their greatest fan. You know the Skim. He's like a huge fan of them, and I think he said at some stage that they made a change. So
Well,
they're like a
they're on
the
familiar
list.
face.
Do you have
Yeah,
Scant?
yeah.
Do you just want to add Scant to the call so he can give us a rundown on what he thinks of this lineup? Because I feel like he's probably more qualified than all of us put together to talk about the SEA qualifiers.
I don't know anything about SCA. I know a little bit about China.
I mean, there is a reasonable
I like
chance
that
that we could move on to Europe and come back to
Okay,
SCA.
let's.
And he'll possibly be done by then.
I also don't have anybody from China, so we'll go to China and then to Europe because I think that I've got Joe from 4CL gonna pop on to talk a little bit about that, but he needs to finish up a game. So China qualifier, CDEC Youth, FDD Club, Invictus Gaming, Newbie Young, Tong Fu, Wings, Team Fan Tuan. well, when you look at this list, is it pretty clear to you which two teams are going to emerge from the China qualifiers, or do you think this is going to be sort of an up in the air because everyone's around the same skill level?
Well, Invictus Gaming, definitely.
Yeah, it's the American qualifier. I was going to say the same thing. You have Cloud9 as the favorites, and then for China, you have IG, and then the next one, it's kind of hard to tell because, sure, Newbie still has some great players on it, but I've casted I've casted a few games, and then every single time, these teams like CDEC Youth or VGP, who's not even in here, or, all these other clubs that belong to the higher brand, once they go up against the higher teams, they just get 2-0'd. So honestly, the skill difference that we were talking about earlier is it goes from 5 to a 10 or something, or 5 to a 9. And it's really hard to place who is that dominant second team right there. But if I had to pick one, it would probably be Wings or Tong Fu. I mean, Newbie Youth still played really good too. I don't even know if I think even Newbie Youth played a little bit better than Newbie in some of the qualifiers.
Wait. What Alan said, I'm gonna call you Alan from now on, it's better. Makes sense, but did you just skip Newbie?
I think you did.
I said at the beginning, I said they still have great players on them. I said that.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I overheard that. Okay. Because to me the whole what you said makes sense, but in my opinion, it is that IG and Newbie are definitely the two strongest teams in this region, no doubt about it. And then there's a huge drop off until the next team that comes along and is maybe contesting for, maybe upsetting one of those teams and grabbing themselves a second spot. But IG and Newbie should take it, but it should be noted that IG has historically not done well in online qualifiers. Granted, this might be on LAN because China has thus far hosted their last 2 TI regional qualifiers on LAN.
Good point.
So if this one is on LAN again, I think IG should be safe, no matter what. But if it's online, there could be a chance that they're not doing as well because IG does not do well in online qualifiers.
Fair. Okay, so
Tong Fu is also maybe potential. Tong Fu took a game off eHome, they took a game off Vici, they lost both series, 1-2, but they've also beaten Newbie in a group stage or something recently, and they beat DK. So it's
yeah, that's why I said Tong Fu and Wings are. That's why I said Tong Fu and Wings are potentially better than Newbie because we saw Wings. They put on. Wasn't that the team that came from the open qualifier last time?
I think so.
And, they did really well in the qualifiers too.
But could any of those teams, Tong Fu or Wings, predominantly?
Tong Fu would be better still, in my opinion. That's
do you think that they could actually contend with the direct invites, though? Do you think that any of those teams could hold their own besides, say, IG or Newbie?
Like Knoxville said, I casted some of their games, and they take one game, they make it go to a 3-game series with one of the best teams like VG or eHome or something. So they can.
Okay. All right.
In terms of open teams or other teams we haven't mentioned there, Team HGT was something that I think Skim might have mentioned earlier.
They were prior to TI. Yeah, no,
I think he said they sucked balls. That's what he said.
Yeah, because prior to TI5, I think they were a good contender for actually one of the qualifier spots during the TI5 qualifiers. I think they were a good contender, but during those qualifiers,
they get knocked out. I think they got knocked out by Wings, didn't they, or something like that? They were one of the teams that got screwed over.
I don't remember anymore, but they just did not play well at all during those qualifiers. That was actually really disheartening.
So they disbanded.
And I think they changed their roster after as well.
No, they disbanded. They disbanded apparently.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
All right. So any that's I don't. I'm gonna be honest with you. I have had my hands full keeping up with North America and Europe in general, and have fallen way behind on my Eastern Dota. Is there anything else from that China grouping that you think is worth mentioning, or is it just going to be sort of a watch to see who emerges? Because let me put it this way: for TI, I felt like the Chinese qualifiers were pretty exciting. There was a lot of teams that were really good that were fighting for spots. I don't feel as strongly about the China qualifiers this time around. Do you feel like it's going to be a lot of fun to watch China qualifiers? Do you think it's going to be sort of a fight by the rest to join in?
I don't think it will be. I think since you have the 2 spots, that's what makes everything interesting.
I gotcha.
It's kind of like the same thing, too, at the TI, where people are still going to have that second spot to go compete. Instead, we're not going to see that this time. Just the second best team is just going to automatically go. And I still do think IG will be the favorites automatically. You can't, like I said, Cloud9 is still going to be the favorites. And then it's just who competes for that second spot of both regions. So it will be very close. It still will be very close.
I do want to point out though that technically we could see a repeat of TI4, was it, where LGD had to be pushed down to the qualifier again because they violated the roster rules.
Oh, really?
So yeah, they were pushed down, and then they just stomped the qualifiers because no other team stood any chance. Because I mean, LGD at the time was one of the strongest teams in the world. They just changed one player, and they was still obviously one of the strongest players in the world.
So is a team making a roster change or something? Is that why you're bringing it up? Or...
No, it's more like the fact that we have two such strong teams as IG and Newbie. The fact that we could see another stomp from these two. Yes, ideally we have a very close contention with like Wings and Tongfu potentially upsetting somebody here, but at the same time, it is also very likely that we're just going to see IG and Newbie stomping.
Okay. All right, fair. I think that's about as much as we're going to have on that one. So let's move forward to the Europe qualifier. Buy some time to maybe get our hands on Scant just for some SEA discussion.
So unfortunately, Scant is in a scrim. The biggest South African Dota event is this weekend, so
gotcha.
He's practicing hard for that. But I have taken the initiative and polled some very knowledgeable SEA experts, such as Durka.
Okay.
One would never think expert. I'm just kidding.
Nobody ever thinks expert with Durka. So let's
and I've got some insights into that. So
excellent.
Take us through it, and then I'll go through it.
We'll finish up Europe, then we'll roll over to SEA. I'm going to add some folks to the call real quick. We've got Joe from 4CNL going to be joining us, and so he is loading in, and we will also be having Matt Deemers from the Score Esports joining us to talk a little bit about European qualifiers. He's a guy that I know loves watching Dota more than most people I know, so he'll be hopping in. Demers? I don't know. Is it Deemers or Demers?
It's close enough. It's you pick one and stick with it. That's pretty much how
Brian, how you doing?
I told people to go with.
All right, so Matt, Joe, 4CNL. First, we'll start out by saying congratulations on your invite to the qualifiers. I know you were excited about that over on Skype. Gentlemen, European qualifiers, the list is in front of you. I'm going to put it up on the screen for everybody who's watching at home. What do you guys think about the list? Anybody missing that you're like, man, they should have been there? Anybody who you're surprised to see on there at all?
Well, just to point out, there's obviously a few notable teams that didn't make it just because they violated the rules, which is Empire, Monkey Freedom Fighters, and No Logic. I'd argue that one of them, maybe two of them, could have maybe replaced, say, Stark or CIS. But that's just speculation at this point.
Yeah. Did you mention Power Rangers? Sorry, I didn't hear.
I did not mention Power Rangers,
Arcade,
but
Arcade.
Oh yeah, Arcade. But I also don't think they're strong enough to actually compete with to replace any of these teams. To be honest, that's just my opinion, though.
Hip-hop.
All right, so let's go down this list. This is probably the easiest way to do it. This is a very competitive group. We can all, I think a lot of us talked about this early on in the direct invites, that Europe is one of the highly contested regions right now in terms of who rises to the top. And we'll just go around the circle. Of this list, and potentially maybe some open qualifier options that you know of that may be going, who do you think has the best chance or looks the most likely to get those two European spots? We'll start with Knoxville and kind of work our way around.
5 Young's probably a big content. I don't know. It's really, really hard. This is definitely the hardest group.
Yeah.
So I think 5 Young's is kind of where I would put my money at the moment. But even in the next couple of days that it's going to take, 5 days, so much could change between these teams. We don't know how close or how far. I think Joe is by far the best person to ask for this.
That's why he's last on my list.
Yeah, I'd rather say nothing and give more time to him to talk. He's the expert on all of these teams.
All right. Skim, do you want to throw any 2 cents in before we roll to the experts?
5 Youngs, and the rest is a bit open, although I would say that Navi is not in the running for it. I don't see them being really strong. I think 4CL can actually upset, but I'm not too sure in them either. That's my assumption.
Is that your mom,
Ryu? I believe in Miracle, honestly. The guys, every time I watch Miracle play, I'm just amazed by everything he does.
Okay.
I could be fanboying or whatever, but it's just really fun just to watch him play, and I would root for that. And then the second team, it's really hard to decide. As like you said, I don't have enough experience as well in this region. I haven't casted that much recently in the last 3 weeks or 4 weeks of the European qualifiers, so I know a lot less.
Sorry. The Ryu MILF spam is got me. I couldn't get past it. It was quality. So Matt, before we go to Joe, because Joe, I know that you live, breathe, and die European Dota, because that's you manage the guys at 4CNL. Matt, I know you write a lot about these sort of different regions. You spend a lot of time watching Dota. In fact,
too much time watching Dota.
I will point out, I was at Summit 3 with Matt, who was there observing, and the rest of us did things like played video games between matches or during matches and sort of talked and had a good time and ate food. Every single game that was played, Matt sat behind the caster couch with a notebook and a pen, literally just taking notes the entire time. So I know that you seriously watch Dota. What do you think about these European qualifier list, and who do you think looks the best to kind of come out of it?
I want to say that Europe is probably the region I watch most, just because it tends to be like during the times that I have shifts at the score. It's kind of a weird situation where like usually I'm pretty much watching what's in the middle of my shifts, and that's usually Europe and maybe like a little bit of North America. In terms of just like a tier list and like just looking at the list anyway, I really like Monkey Business. They've kind of like surprised me a little bit, just in terms of like the games that they've been able to take off others. I will agree with the 4 Clover. Do you think that they can upset? Mostly just because, like, again, I'm looking at some of the games that they've been taking off other people, and I'm just thinking, like, I always kind of associate 4 Clover with 4 Anchor, because I wouldn't say they came out like during, you know, the same kind of time bracket, I guess. But it's kind of funny to see that, like, 4 Clovers have very much like surpassed that at least I think anyway, what 4 Anchors was kind of setting out to do. Yeah, to be honest, I agree with the Na'Vi not really being in a spot of contention, I guess. Like, to be honest, I want to see who comes into the open qualifier, because I feel that anyone that gets in there will still be in that, like, it's not like they're going to be like automatically at the, you know, lower 3rd tier. Like, I think that Europe is definitely one of the more closer regions anyway. So I want to say that I will agree with Na'Vi not really being a factor. Alliance obviously depends who shows up that day, or like which alliance shows up that day. But I want to say Monkey Business. I'll agree with the 5 Youngs. I definitely cannot pronounce it. And 4 Clover, I'm really interested to see how they go.
Okay, I think that's a good assessment there. Joe, I think we've made you wait long enough. Well, I want to hear what you have to say about this region. So, you know, we're trying to bring in some experts in each one. I know that you know this very well. You've probably scrimmed against or watched your guys scrim against a lot of these teams. And I'll give you the same sort of question I posed to Jenkins. When you look at this list, you know, obviously you're going to say that you guys have a great chance to take this win. Who looks like the hardest climb for you to get past when you watch them play right now?
So yeah, we Monkey Business or Frankfurt Majors, both obviously big challenges, as everyone else mentioned. They performed well. Although Monkey Business haven't been performing too well on this patch, from what I've seen. I believe they lost to Empire in Dream League. But I mean, they're still an insanely strong team, and Motel is doing amazing things. So those 2 are probably the highest 2 on our list. Obviously, we value ourselves quite well and have quite a lot of faith in ourselves. I quite liked Matt's point about comparing us to 4ASC, as we're actually playing them right now in a different tournament. I honestly am not sure which one it is. And we're beating them 1-0. So his point has clearly got some truth to it.
I have a question. All right. So is it possible for any of the 2 people or teams coming from the open qualifiers to win? Because we know Empire is still not in there.
Definitely. There's no way to say that's not, like, if the roster changes didn't happen, then there's no way you get a team. Like Scary Faces, Team Alternate, basically the entire Join Dota, the defense stage 1, they're all essentially potential invites. Golden Boys, like Scary Faces, some people could say that they're performing much better than Stark are, and yet they didn't get an invite, whereas other teams did. So I think there is possibly maybe 13, 14 potential invites if there weren't any roster changes. So I was quite thankful. I looked earlier today at what roster changes there were and became more confident. And I sent you my predictions earlier, which was the 7 teams plus 1. I wasn't quite sure on CIS did rejects.
Yeah.
They hadn't really. I can't really
Who was
recall
on
what they
that
played.
I haven't really been impressed with them so far. That's Goblek's team, isn't it?
No, Goblek's team is new team 1, 2, 3.
Oh no. Sorry, I was confusing them.
CS reject is Vanscore.
That's
I'm drawing a blank here, but.
Well, and it is worth noting, by the way, I got, for the qualifier lists, I actually got a lot of predictions sent to me, like Joe sent me, from people in the field who were like, this is who I think is going to get the qualifier invites, because we thought it was all going to roll out like it did last time. So there's sort of all of them popping up at the same time, a little bit monkey-wrenched the system, but it does mean I get to eat dinner tonight instead of, eating at the computer, so I guess I'm not too angry about that. But Joe, before we move on past Europe, when you look at the open qualifier, you mentioned Empire, you mentioned that you cannot write off anybody in there. I guess this is my question. Going into the direct invite teams are incredibly powerful and incredibly strong. Do you think that the teams that come out of the European qualifier are going to be able to make a stand against those top 8 and really represent themselves the way that they should be, that they could, or you think that they're just going to come in 9th and 10th place?
I honestly think that they have a good chance. Like, if you think of how the TI qualifiers panned out, Yellow Submarine, they came in and basically placed last in the group. But if you think about the teams that are in it this time, they could easily take games off. It's not like because they've changed their roster, they've stopped scrimming the top teams. They're like, I know Alliance and Empire scrimmed earlier today. So you can't really rule anyone out, especially with how tense the format is. Not even the format, just how tense everything is. I think with two teams going through, it's a lot fairer rather than having just one team going to the wild card, because I thought the groups from TI was quite a big factor of who went through. I know it might sound, I was managing Burden United back then, and when I saw that Na'Vi had quite an easy group, I'm not going to say it's a conspiracy, but I mean, Dendi had to go to
TIs. just to add to that, don't you also think that the way the qualifier was executed, the fact that it was over 2.5 days or 3 days, was a bit maybe too short?
I don't know. I think the fact that the time restraints weren't the problem, more the fact that it was best of 2 and how a draw was so heavily punished.
Yeah, that's true.
It's possible that's going to happen this year.
I think it will be exactly the same. They've said that it's 2 groups of 5 again. But
they haven't said the scoring.
No, they haven't. But judging by how other events are doing it now, I imagine they will. But you're rewarded for going YOLO 2 games and maybe going 2-0, and then playing crap for the next 2 games and going 0-2. You get what was it, 3 points versus 2 points. I don't know what the actual score was. But, yeah, I think I kind of changed the subject.
Yeah, it's really hard. That's why we saw the TI format change, right? Because you had 8 teams on one side and 8 teams on the other. You can't really do the same thing. You have 5 teams on one side, 5 teams on, and then it just makes Dota. I don't agree with it at all. And it's like you're saying, I can understand the points with the 2 O's and the O2s, how it hurts so much. You can just go 4-4, have same score, and then you have 6 points compared to 4 points of the other person who goes 1-1 every single game. But they tried a lot harder, and it looked like they were a better team. So it does. It is hard. They want to help.
The thing.
Oh,
no, carry on. Okay.
I was gonna say that.
This is uncomfortable.
Point of order.
You've made me uncomfortable. Knoxville, talk.
Yeah, so the thing is that in the past, one of the big problems with round robin is that once you're definitely through,
Right.
or you're definitely out. You just absolutely stop caring about everything. Like you just don't care about the remaining games, and those can have really big impacts on everyone else. So with this format, there's a lot of uncertainty until till the end of your series about whether or not, like, how many points you're going to get out. And at the same time, for viewers, every team cares about every single game. It's not a situation like, oh, we got the 1 point we needed, GG, don't care, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, no one cares.
Okay. So I got a little bit lost in where we're going with qualifier stuff.
Yeah.
To stay on the European qualifier topic, I do want to sort of move us to it, because we've been sort of talking about qualifiers for about an hour now. What do you look forward to most from the European qualifiers? Do you think, and I think, this is what I think, that there's a high potential of this being the most competitive qualifier and the most exciting to watch in a lot of ways? Do you agree with that? Do you think that these are some of the top teams, and it's almost sad that so many of these great teams are going to have to kill each other to get to the championship, and some great teams are going to fall by the wayside? Or do you think that it's going to be a pretty big difference between the top and the bottom?
I covered, we had like 4 different staff covering the TI qualifiers. So essentially we had one person per region. So I covered EU. And I think that what you were saying is pretty much on the mark, where it's almost like there's not enough invite spots for Europe. And it's almost like, okay, well, at least we have like a decent mini tournament almost with the remaining teams that we get to, see who gets the remaining 2 spots. I am interested the most. I was listening, obviously, before I came on the show, to what Nahaz was saying about TI and I guess major tournament, or like just TI having their own like mini meta. And I really like how this tournament is at the the qualifiers are at the beginning of the patch evolution, because we're going to see like different, like, it's almost like we're going to be able to look at the huge timeline of it when it's done, from like now till the end of the day after the major, whenever 6.86 comes out. And we're going to be able to like look at it and be like, okay, we're going to be able to segment it into chunks of when certain heroes are like, there's little mini metas almost within like a giant one. And it's weird. It's going to have 6.85 is going to have a giant meta, but then there's going to be like all these little segments of like when people figure out counters and people figure out different strengths and that kind of stuff. And I really like seeing the evolution of that as it's actually happening. So yeah, that's pretty much what, like, I think that the European qualifier is probably going to be the most exciting one, mostly just from my personal experience watching like SEA in China, where there are certain like definite low tier teams where you're like, okay, this is just going to be a giant waste of time. But I don't know, looking at the list of European teams anyway, I can definitely say that I'm probably looking forward to watching each match. And like, we're going to see at least, even if we don't see teams like qualify, we're at least going to see positive growth. And I think that's my favorite part about like watching Dota, at least from a local perspective, is that you at least get to see growth, and you get to be able to compare them from like where they were at the start of the tournament to where they are at the end.
And with the major system in place now, there's there's even more benefit to seeing positive growth, right? Because maybe you don't qualify for this one, but 3 months down the line, your team stays together, and all of a sudden you have a chance to play for another 3 million in a short period of time.
Well, if they stay together that long, that's
right. It's more encouraging to stay together, though, right? Because you say, well, I saw positive growth, so there's a better chance that my team will stay together moving to the next one, or so we hope. I would hope.
I actually gotta disagree with both of you in regards to Europe being the most competitive region.
Okay.
I think we all can pretty much agree that prior to TI5, all of us thought, or most people thought, that the Western scene was going to be stronger than China, right? I think that was a common denominator, or there was a common opinion, though, the fact that mostly Europe was going to be stronger this year. But I think that the TI qualifiers with Europe were not as competitive for me, example, as NA. I thought NA was much more competitive because I think in NA the density in terms of like quality is like, or rather the teams are much more closer to each other in terms of quality. I think I can name 4 to 5 teams in NA that are much more on like an equal level, whereas in Europe, I think it's easier to rank teams in terms of like expected level of quality play. I think there's a few teams where you can say in Europe, oh, okay, these teams are wildcard. 4CL for me is a wildcard in terms of quality, because I think they can be really good, but at the same time they can also be really bad. I'm sorry, Joe. And I think in NA it's much more closest, where I kind of say, okay, I mean, even if there's this outlier, I think these teams are really close to each other. I don't know. That's just
I think
me.
I can agree with you. Like now that I look back on it, now that I think of it, like I'm looking at the NA rosters right now, and it's like from what we knew of each of the NA teams, there was at least a reasonable expectation that like all of them, except for maybe like Unknown, maybe just because they were like really like out of nowhere. There was a reasonable expectation that all of them were kind of going to do well. Like looking kind of over at the European tab anyway, like some of them like we had seen in round robin tournaments and stuff, but they were usually like down at the bottom of the table kind of thing. And especially like we were saying with Yellow Submarine, where they came in, we weren't really. We were kind of iffy on them anyway. At least that's what we were saying before anyway. I can kind of agree. Like it wasn't so much that like obviously I was biased because I mainly like I was watching like EU for 12 hours a day. But looking back, I guess on the Americas anyway, like I kind of see where you're coming from.
I could say the same too for all the other regions where like Rave got knocked out by MVP. The MVPs.
Oh man, that was so good.
Team Tinker got knocked out.
Yeah.
So by Complexity and even. All these different teams as well as in China, I would say all the other regions can be very competitive, and we saw that from the last TI. And you cannot base it off just one region. But yeah, like I'll reference Gods. What he said in chat was really spot on. Where everyone in Europe, everyone's been known and they've been around for a long time, and we're not too familiar, right, with the SEA players as much, or say the China players as much, besides the bigger teams. Right? We all know the bigger team names on them, and then so we just kind of overlooked that. And then American Dota hasn't been doing that well until maybe this last year, where we're saying, okay, well, Fluff is making his own team, Demon's making his own team. Well, we have everyone just making their own teams now, and then they can all become strong, and we have newer people.
So what was your point?
My point is that that Europe does get a lot of the attention, whereas God said it, and it's unfair to the other regions where to say that, oh, Europe's going to be the strongest region, where it's not necessarily the case.
Well, and I did anybody, I don't know that I would say that Europe, or anybody said that Europe is the strongest region. I think the question was, will it be the most entertaining to watch? And that's sort of where it comes down to, are they the closest to each other, not the best overall? Does that make sense?
It might not even be it might not even be like a matter of just close. It might just be a matter of that we see them the most often, so we're able to more accurately judge, their strength levels, or at least be able to see like two teams that you've seen before, either in something like Dream League or in something like, I'm thinking about just like they've either qualified for other lands. They usually aren't making it, very far in the bracket stage, but they're at least visible enough that we are saying, oh, there's that guy from that tournament that we've seen before. And like obviously for us, we are looking at the scene from a much more constant perspective. But for the average viewer and that kind of stuff, who doesn't have enough time to kind of watch every single region every single day, there is a value to being able to say, here's this team that's been in the group stages, didn't make it out of the group stages of this tournament, but they're in league play in another tournament. So that creates like a familiarity that if it goes into these kind of qualifiers, we'll at least be able to say, oh, okay, I know all eight of these teams, as opposed to China, where you might not know half the teams, and because they aren't big enough to constantly like have those kind of showstopper moments or something like that, or just like be highlighted very often, whatever, it might be a little bit more difficult to like get enthusiasm about a team you're not very familiar with. But if you look for NA and EU, I guess maybe that's just a symptom of the West. At least with this EU qualifier, I think that like the teams that are participating are a lot more visible, and it means that there's kind of like a more excitement from that, because we can at least gauge like where they are, I guess, on a tier list a little easier.
Okay. Well, we've talked about Europe for a little while here. Do you guys have any last thoughts before we move into our final region discussion?
9.
All right, so let's talk about SEA real quick. I know that some of you were like, I have nothing to say about SEA, and if that's the case, you're welcome to sit here or take off if you need to. That said, Knoxville, I think that you said you did a little bit of research or got some input from some people who know a little more about the scene. What do you have for us on the SEA qualifiers?
Okay, so the first bit is First Departure had a roster change, so that's why they're not listed. I don't know.
Okay.
Like 3 people said that to me, but they made a roster change.
Okay.
Okay. Then from the infallible Durka, king of the SCA region, he has told me that Fnatic is clearly number 1, and that's something that I think almost all of us knew.
Yeah. Damn, that's a very astute
and then
observation.
He said the next tier, like the next grouping, is TNC and Mineski. Mineski are definitely on the up and up from a like purely statistical point. They've been quite consistent, consistently increasing. They have dropped games here. They haven't been like untouchable, but they've been doing good. TNC also they just lost a game like either last night or earlier today. And then he said it's a little bit awkward because there's kind of like team 1-2-3, which is the one that no one can pronounce. Satu Dua Tiga.
Yeah, it's Yamate's team.
Yeah, they are like they're kind of on TNC Mineski level, but at the moment they're just a bit below it. They're like flittering between the two. Then he said it's the two MVPs, then Trust, and then RRQ.
Damn, they're that far.
And his personal insight is that Mineski could upset and could be the top dog.
So I also think I saw God's mention in chat. I know that he also follows the SEA scene. That it may have the lowest total skill cap of all the qualifiers, but it sounds like from Durka, Fnatic is a shoe-in, assuming that they play their normal game, and Mineski and MVP are the next two. Is that what I'm getting?
TNC.
He said that was like
TNC.
Yeah, Mineski
TNC
and
Mineski.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they were down. MVP were like 1 or 2 tiers below that.
Okay. So,
but it's like very, very compact and close between the levels. Like there are clear levels, but it's not like, it's not like C9 to the next team type thing.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think that's about as much as I know. I honestly, I don't know enough about SEA, and it is tough to get SEA experts on like Coffee with Toffees in the show to sort of talk about it. So, if you are an SEA expert and you want to talk more about this sort of stuff, I would love to do a CWT episode where we talk specifically about the SEA scene going into qualifiers. But gentlemen, that's my primary discussion. Let me just ask you this, and this is a simple opinion question, really a quick answer. Of the qualifiers, of the 4 regions, which one are you the most excited to watch? And you can answer this as a fanboy, you can answer this as a manager, you can answer this as any way you want. But which qualifier, looking at the lists, are you most excited about spending your time sitting in front of?
Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably Europe.
I'm excited to see NA.
Europe is like an opportunity for all of us to kind of like either confirm or deny the biases that we have in terms of where people are post TI. And like I know that you can say that for every single region, but it's like I feel that people have the strongest opinions towards the European region. Maybe that's just like where people are based around in the West or whatever, but it's like we want to see where Monkey Business goes. We want to see where 5Young goes. We want to either confirm or deny that Alliance are back or Navi is garbage or those freaking see where NIP stand after having kind of a relatively heartbreaking TI qualifier anyway. Not like they look pretty positive and then they kind of nosedived a little bit, but I think that Europe at least is close to maybe I'm speaking for everyone a little too hard, but like for me anyway, I think Europe is good because it gives us more context for beyond the Frankfurt Major. And I think that's what a lot of people want right now out of TI is like they want to just like for me anyway, it's like a lot of people like the chaos of post TI. I hate it because it's just like, okay, we need to like wait for I want things to get back to like business as usual. I guess. But for me, Europe, I just want to see like if teams aren't going to try at a major qualifier, where are they going to try, right? So it's like it's probably going to give us the most accurate representation of where teams are on a power level scale. So that's kind of like most teams that I want to see that for anyway are in Europe. So I'm excited for the Europe qualifier.
Okay. For me, it's go
ahead.
For me, it's Europe as well, but for an almost entirely different reason. It's more like I think it's easier to follow storylines behind the players and teams from Europe, right? Because they're so popular and they're like all over the media basically. They're all over Reddit, whatever. They have the most games out of all regions, I think, maybe in contention with C, but whatever. So you definitely get the most. Like I've seen, for example, Monkey Business play like 10, 20 times these past 2.5, maybe 3 weeks, right? Okay. So I want to see where that story or how that story continues. I want to see, wait, is this team gonna be strong or not? Is this team gonna be, where's Notel gonna end up? Where's Fata gonna end up? Who else is gonna end up? I think it is also for a lot of people just interesting to see now. Like, a lot of people are asking, what team should I follow now? What team is it that what team should I be rooting for, right? And I think the dust will settle soon. So I guess it is kind of similar to what Matt said. So the dust will hopefully settle soon, and C, there's just so many unknown people. I mean, for people in Europe to follow the C scene, not only would you have to change your time zone different or adapt your time zone accordingly, you'd have to invest a lot of effort to follow the scene because it's not as well covered as the European scene.
Gotcha. All right, Joe, Knoxville, any thoughts or anything you wanted to find before we sign out of this bad boy regarding what you're most excited about in terms of qualifier regions?
Well, it's a little bit annoying that America's and Europe on at the same time.
That is annoying.
So there's always a bit of overlap. And they're on the same, I wish I would just split it because Sun Tzu said this in chat, and I think he's kind of right to some extent. Who honestly admits that they really, really want to watch in it, SEA Dota. And it's true in some ways because it's so inaccessible for us to a lot of the games are clowny, a lot of the games are throws. It's like watching in some ways, if you watch TNT, you'll understand that this isn't like Flame. They do literally take games in some senses like high-level pubs. But yeah, I think that SEA is definitely not going to be the most exciting. Europe, I think we see all the Europe and American teams, the teams listed here, play a lot against each other. Whereas the Chinese qualifiers, we don't really necessarily see a lot of games involving the underdogs playing off against each other.
Right.
So I think that'll be quite exciting. Normally in tournaments, how the seeding works is that you have a high-level team and a low-level team, and it's double elim or single elim. So the first round of games go, and it's all just paired off, and it's only you only almost always see 1 or 2 rounds of the bad team or not so great teams playing off against each other. So yeah, I'm excited to see what the Chinese teams have got to offer. But yeah, also the Americas, because last time everyone, I think almost everyone would have put their house on Team Tinker winning,
right.
and that didn't come through.
So what I'm getting from you, Knoxville, is you are excited to watch every qualifier region except Southeast Asia,
and probably not many of Europe.
Okay.
To be honest.
Okay. Cool. Well, I will not deny my North American fanboy status, and I'll say that I'm most excited to watch the North American qualifiers. Part of that's because that's when I'm awake, and part of that is because that's how I got my start, was the North American scene. So I think it's really exciting to see that scene grow a lot over the last 2 years, and in my opinion, I think they've grown the most out of all the scenes in terms of going from no real competitive presence besides 1 or 2 teams on the international scene to having a lot of teams that could at least be competitive. So that's exciting for me to see, though I will be watching the other qualifiers as well. Guys, that's about all the time that we have for the show. We've gone for 3.5 hours. I appreciate all of you who've shown up and who've hung out. Final guest, the ones who stuck around to the bitter end, Knoxville, I appreciate you being here. Where can these folks find you if they're looking for you, Knoxville?
Twitter is the easiest, at KnoxvilleZA. So it's Knoxville ZA, but my IP address someone posted in chat if you want to DDoS that.
So you can just find him there too. Cool. And we've got Joe, the manager for 4C and L. Congratulations on your invite to the European qualifiers. Where can these folks find you or your team?
Team is at 4CloversDota, and my own Twitter is at Joe_Eastham.
Awesome. And gentleman who's always on our shows, who comes around a lot, one of my favorite analysts, Skim. I know they can find you at Skim Gaming. Any last words before we go?
Thanks for having me. It was a very great and fun show.
Awesome. It sounds like it's Skim.
No,
and last but not least, and I'm told that I have to read it exactly this way, Matt Demers from Score Esports.
From the Score Esports.
From the Score.
AKA K-Poptosis with the.
That is true.
AKA Richard Lewis.
If you could, yeah, right. If you could do an accent though, you'd really crush that K-pop comparison.
Yeah. No, I can't do the Southern drawl. Sorry.
So where can all these fine people find you?
Oh boy, I'm not even gonna attempt to do that. You can find me on
small
Twitter.
shanty bar in Alabama.
It's twitter.com/MattDemers, and then you can also follow me on Twitch because I stream Dota at Matt Demers. I try to just do first name, last name for everything, and it tends to work out. So
Nice.
Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Guys, thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching, folks. Thank you to Valve for announcing this 5 hours early so that I had a little bit of time to get things put together. And a big thank you to my wife for helping me make sure that I had the time free to do this, as well as the babysitter who was on short notice but stepped in. So thanks to everybody who watched. My name is Toffees. You can find me at Toffees_Dota2. If you want to support the show, you can find the links down below this stream or patreon.com/Toffees. And of course, thanks to Razer for all the sweet gear that's kept us going. And I think that we've learned some things tonight, and one of those is that maybe the Razer headset quality is a little bit better than the Siberia headset quality. But that's just from what I've heard in the chat.
Yeah, I'll give you a bonus for that, dude.
Right? I don't know. I agree with that. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Have a wonderful evening. And as always, Toffees out.